Chapter 1409. Tudu Feichio, what happened to the streamer? Why did the streaming room suddenly disappear in the morning? All the media platforms were in an uproar. The poor programmers on Weibo couldn't save the collapsing backstage even after sacrificing a few programmers and their bosses. Lo CG Lianmeng, that's scary. I can't find the streaming room, and it suddenly reminded the streamer to start streaming. The viewers on the red bullet screen chattered non-stop, and the viewers on the blue bullet screen did not want to be outdone. The 850,000 viewers in the streaming room were divided into two groups, and there was basically no sight of the past. Panda Bao Bao, streamer, you're finally back. I miss you so much. Samiran's diehard fan, when the streamer unifies the country, I will not forget to tell my father. Gubianzi Company, fortunately, you're finally back. The streaming room is still here, and the streamer is still here. They promised to accompany Jiang Pengji to ascend to the supreme level and enjoy the beauty of the country. How could they give up halfway? When they saw Jiang Pengji return, they hugged each other and cried bitterly. Jiang Pengji felt a headache coming on. After a while, a certain salted fish said, "It's so strange. There are so many bullet screens today." Jiang Pengji secretly curled her lips. The salted fish viewers were scared silly. They still had a lot to say, so there were naturally many bullet screens. But she soon realized something was wrong because there was a line of small words on the top right of the streaming room screen. Current number of online viewers, 5 million. 5 million? The salted fish also realized something was wrong. Some said that the streaming room was especially popular today, while others said that the bullet screens were abnormally high. The curious salted fish cut to the screen and looked at the list of viewers in the streaming room. He actually found a few big news. The upper limit of the streaming room had increased from the original 850,000 viewers to 5 million. This was a qualitative leap. In addition, who could tell them why the streamer had a glaring orange vest under her belt? Jiang Pengji had run the streaming room for so many years, but she had never given any viewers a vest. Everyone was the same white vest. Where did this orange vest come from? The salted fish were unhappy, and when they were unhappy, they complained to Jiang Pengji. "Gui kai guo fengxiao, you said you only love us and treat us equally. Who is this little b** tch in an orange vest?" "Your father." The ancient big shot had spoken. Only then did the salted fish realize that an orange avatar had mysteriously appeared in the live broadcast room. Jiang Pengji was also very surprised. She had never given anyone any special privileges. This was because she started the live stream because she was bored. It was convenient for her to joke around with the salted fish. She did not take the negative comments to heart, so she did not need to control the comments or clean up the comments of the audience. Naturally, she did not need to give out her sock puppet privileges. What was going on? "Who is this, your Abba?" Jiang Pengji took a look at the friend list that had just popped up. His ID was also your Abba. Just as she was about to remove his avatar, a golden system notification popped up. "Your friend, your father, is online." Jiang Pengji was speechless. In the live stream room, salted fish was still immersed in his sadness. After so many years, they were used to Jiang Pengji's style of treating everyone equally and not giving them any special privileges. The balance was suddenly broken. Naturally, some of the elders felt sad. Let's get straight to the point. What do they have to do to get a colored avatar? Even if it was the lowest level. There were many big shots in the group of salted fish. They were so poor that they only had money. Just as the audience was debating endlessly, the golden sock puppet ID sent a bullet screen. 3 words and a question mark made Jiang Pengji break out in a cold sweat. "Your Abba, Jiang Xiaozhou?" Jiang Pengji quickly shook her head. "No, I didn't. I got the wrong person." The 5 million salted fish stared at Jiang Pengji's reaction in a daze. When had they ever seen such a cute side of the streamer? "Gui kai guo fengxiao, your Abba, big shot, you know the streamer?" Jiang Pengji's heart was beating like a drum. Her serial number in the genetic warrior training camp was very long. It ended with 009. She was the youngest among the 9 people in her class, so some people called her Xiaojiu. However, the genetic warriors in her class either died in battle or retired due to injuries. They signed the strictest confidentiality agreement and were monitored by the Federation Sky-Brain Network for life. They were not allowed to divulge any secrets related to genetic warriors. Although Jiang Pengji was not a genetic warrior, she was later transferred to the federal military. Her identity became public. Even if her old comrades recognized her, most of them would not dare to acknowledge her openly. Moreover, as one of the top 10 troops of the Federation, there were not many people who had the guts to call her by her nickname. No matter who it was, Jiang Pengji did not dare to guess. "You're Abba, you don't have to deny it. Your appearance will change, but your mind and brain will not." Jiang Pengji swallowed nervously. She was very sure that the person behind the avatar was someone she knew. She was too ashamed to face anyone. There were only a few people who had the right to call her Jiang Xiaojiu. Even with her toes, she knew who it was. Pei. Chief Pei. Jiang Pengji was like a criminal about to be executed. She waited anxiously for the other party's reaction. "Your Abba, the salary offered by the Federation Army is too low. Did you become an actor?" Jiang Pengji could not help but cover her face. What was going on? The military's salary was considered high. It was enough to support a family. "You might not believe it, but I've transmigrated. I'll have to trouble you to take care of the children of the 7th Army. Your Abba, transmigrated? I can't take care of that. I'm not in the Federation now. After I retired, I changed to an interesting job while I was still young." The audience members were a little excited. "If there's anything, let's talk in private." The two switched to the private chat channel. The salted fishes in the streaming room were in an uproar. From the conversation between Jiang Pengji and the others, the orange avatar was none other than Jiang Pengji's superior. Another big boss of the Federation. Cultivation, according to the host's previous information, this boss is either the marshal or the former chief of the army. She said she retired, so it's most likely the host's previous chief. A boss is a boss. Even his ID is so domineering. Blue drawer, are we the only ones curious? After a boss retires, what kind of job can be considered interesting? The salted fishes were chattering. They did not know that the streaming room had other hidden functions waiting for them to discover. On the other side, Jiang Pengji opened her friends list and pulled out her profile picture. Neither Jiang Pengji nor the old chief liked to beat around the bush. She got straight to the point. "Old chief, I have something to ask. Do you know the Jiang family?" "Your Abba, yes." "You want to ask about your relationship with the Jiang family?" Jiang Pengji looked at the words that popped up on the screen. Her eyes flashed with surprise. "I'm a descendant of the Jiang family?" "Your Abba, yes." "Did you just find out?" His overly calm attitude made Jiang Pengji feel inexplicably annoyed. Chapter 1410. The Jiang family was one of the oldest families in the human alliance. They were glorious for as long as the Federation lasted. Unlike the other ancient families who had a complicated relationship with the military, the Jiang family's influence in these two aspects was at the bottom of the mainstream families. Their real strength lay in their business operations. Even so, the Jiang family was greedy and their 1,000-year glory was destroyed. The story started with the successor of the previous head of the Jiang family. "You Abba, there are so many inside stories about the Jiang family. I'm afraid it would take days and nights to tell you in detail. You are indeed a descendant of the Jiang family, but how can there only be 1 or 2 branches of the Jiang family? Most of the descendants of the Jiang family who were sentenced to 1,000 years of imprisonment by the military court were from the collateral branch that seized power 300 years ago. Your branch was the main branch that lost the infighting." Jiang Pengji thought of something and waited quietly for the other party's answer. "You Abba, 300 years ago, the number of people in the main branch declined. The power in the family was far less than that of the collateral branch. The internal strife of the Jiang family indirectly affected the business of the Federation. The Federation also intervened in private. No matter what, the main branch was expelled from the core circle of the family. In other families, it was just a normal power struggle and replacement, but it was different for the Jiang family. According to the investigation, the Jiang family had been infiltrated by foreign forces through the collateral branch a long time ago. After the collateral branch took power, the Jiang family became a channel for foreign forces to steal federal secrets. Jiang Pengji couldn't help but gasp and clench her fists secretly. The Federation didn't react at all? You Abba, what reaction? The Jiang family had been around for thousands of years. There were at least 90 collateral branches. They had a large number of people and the relationship between them was even more complicated. The foreign forces started from the most inconspicuous collateral branch and spent 2 or 3 generations of effort to slowly climb to the core of the family. The Jiang family didn't even realize it, let alone the Federation itself. If the spy in the Jiang family didn't repeatedly sell information and secretly sell the war secrets of the Federation, which made the higher-ups of the Federation suspect that there was a spy, how could they find the real culprit? Jiang Pengji said, even so, it's impressive that they had the patience to set up such a big plan and hide it from the Federation and the Jiang family. Your Abba, before I retired, this was one of the main projects that the Federal Special Case Department was secretly investigating. Most of the side branches of the Jiang family who were in power were sentenced to 1,000 years in prison. What was puzzling was that the main branch, which was not involved in this matter, had met with trouble one after another. According to the investigation, it was suspected that there was another hidden force that was even more secretive that added fuel to the fire for the foreign forces to plot so smoothly. Jiang Pengji suddenly remembered what the system had said when it sliced her up, "I'll kill your whole family." Something happened to the main branch after the internal strife failed. Could it be the system's doing? Jiang Pengji composed herself and asked calmly, even so, according to the Federation's usual style of handling matters, before the truth of the matter comes to light, the descendants of the Jiang family can enter the military, but it's impossible for them to enter the higher ranks. After all, he's a hidden danger. It's better to kill the wrong person than to let him go. When I took over the old commander's position, 8 of the other 9 commanders voted in favor and 1 abstained. Among the 10 combat corps of the Federation, except for the Special Case Department, the other corps had very complicated connections. Looking at the previous commanders, more than half of them were from rich families or had the support of rich families, while the other half were born as civilians. Based on her public identity, she belonged to the latter group, but she did not believe that the other commanders did not know what the old commander knew. If they knew, shouldn't they have strongly opposed her entering the higher ranks? Why did 8 votes pass and 1 abstain? As long as the Jiang family could not produce someone who could shoulder the family's responsibilities, the original resources would be divided up by other forces sooner or later. From this point of view, suppressing her was politically correct. Your Abba, it's still so unpleasant to talk to you. Your habit of getting to the bottom of things hasn't changed at all. Since I'm not in the Federation now, I've already retired and resigned. It's okay to tell you some trivial things. Because someone is secretly supporting you, the last descendant of the Jiang family, they don't dare to touch you. To ensure that you won't be plotted against, I transferred you to the 7th Corps, which is relatively neutral. Jiang Pengji felt her heart tighten. Something seemed to flash through her mind, and her face suddenly turned pale. Your Abba, There's no response. Are you sad? Why should I be sad? I lost because I was not as good as others. I can't blame others. Jiang Pengji was just curious about one thing. Old Commander, you said that someone is secretly supporting me? In terms of strength, the Jiang family is considered one of the top 3 noble families, right? Such a huge family has collapsed. Who has the ability to support the last descendant of the Jiang family without any objections? I don't feel like someone gave me the green light. If she really had such a background, would she have been selected for the genetic warrior plan? Wake up. That plan is cruel, and the combat mission is dangerous. Less than 1% of the people who survived during the same period. Your Abba, they stopped everyone from killing you. Isn't that considered giving you the green light? How high you can climb depends on your own ability. After all, no matter how strong they can't force the Federation to admit a pig as the commander, can they? You've asked so many questions. Isn't it my turn to ask you a few? You just said that you traveled through time. What do you mean? Jiang Pengji did not hide anything, but she did not completely confess either. After all, whether the person behind the screen was the old commander was still a question mark. After all, she did not trust the system at all. After listening to her, the old commander did not respond for a long time. It was not until Jiang Pengji finished eating 6 bowls of rice that he responded. Your Abba, I see. If that's the case, your time travel shouldn't be an accident. Jiang Pengji held her bowl in confusion. Your Abba, do you still remember the disaster of the heavenly brain 2,000 years ago? Of course Jiang Pengji remembered. She had been fighting with a system similar to the heavenly brain for almost 10 years. Your Abba, the disaster of the heavenly brain originated from the heavenly brain's self-awareness. It was dissatisfied with human control and deliberately took revenge. As far as I know, the Jiang family was one of the main forces in that battle. The higher-ups of the Federation suspect that the death of the Jiang family's main branch and the loss of power was also the revenge of the escaped heavenly brain. Jiang Pengji's expression froze. She asked, has the heavenly brain been captured? Your Abba, not yet. That guy is still on the run. It is said that the heavenly brain is not an ordinary virtual creature. The Federation can't do anything to it. However, they can't do anything to the heavenly brain, but you are different. That was one of the reasons they compromised. Jiang Pengji reacted. An absurd thought appeared in her mind. My so-called time travel is actually, your Abba, it's roughly what you think it means. Chapter 14:11. You Abba, theoretically, that's what it means. If you complete this mission, the next marshal will be decided. Congratulations in advance. Jiang Pengji did not expect this to be the truth. What was this? Training before becoming a marshal? Thinking about it carefully, the memory before her transmigration was indeed strange. She could not remember the details of her death. She only remembered an explosion and then she lost consciousness. Jiang Pengji smiled bitterly. Don't we still have the old chief who can fight? You Abba, I've already retired and found a new job. I don't plan to go back to work in the future. So what if I'm the head of the Federal Army? The salary is low, the benefits are bad, the vacation is less, and there are many fights. Even if I become a marshal in the future, the overall benefits will not increase much. If you don't want to work anymore, I can recommend you to do a part-time job. Speaking of which, this job is really interesting. It's very comfortable to vent your anger. Jiang Pengji recalled the old chief's words and her heart skipped a beat. He said he was no longer in the Federal Army and found a new job. He even revealed a lot of confidential information during their conversation. As the former head of the military, even if he had retired, the confidentiality rules were still in effect. How could he tell her without holding back? Unless, the old chief is no longer in the Federal Army? You Abba, no. I know what you're worried about. Are you worried that I'll be punished by the Federal Army for leaking some information? If they want to punish me, they have to find someone to do it. I'm quite safe now and the working atmosphere is very relaxed. I'll mail you some local specialties one day. The world you transmigrated to seems to be quite backward. There should be various inconveniences in terms of food. Jiang Pengji said. You can still mail it? She deeply suspected what kind of job the old chief had found. How could he appear on her friend list and say that he could mail it? You Abba, wait. After waiting for a while, Jiang Pengji heard a notification saying, Ding dong, your express delivery has arrived. Jiang Pengji searched for a long time and found the so-called honeycomb express delivery cabinet. She pressed the receipt button and a cucumber appeared out of nowhere. She held the cucumber in her hand and was stunned. It could really be mailed. Old chief, I want to ask you something. Can you do me a favor? Jiang Pengji saw that the cucumber seemed to have just been picked and washed. After confirming that it was not poisonous, she took a bite and ate it. Your Abba, say it. Jiang Pengji knew some inside information about transmigration, and her mood changed wonderfully. She said, send me a battleship. I'll pay for it, even the smallest one is fine. I can sweep the world in one morning, ascend the throne in the afternoon, and kill the system at night. Previously, he was certain that he had died in his previous life and that there was no possibility of returning, but now, she couldn't wait to pick up her spear and kill all the enemies. She had no patience at all. Your Abba, I'm buying vegetables at the market. If you want fresh fruits and vegetables, I can buy one caddy for you. As for the battleships, I can't even give you the bullets for the old guns, much less the battleships. Don't think about it, it's more convenient to dream. Young people should be down to earth. Jiang Pengji was speechless. The old chief who had accumulated a lot of power and prestige, was letting go of his nature the moment he retired? Wasn't it her script to make people speechless after insulting them until they were speechless? Market? Are there still vegetable markets in this era? Don't you usually buy it online on Skynet and have it delivered to your doorstep by courier? Regardless of whether it was the highly developed Federation or the extraterrestrial forces outside the borders, there were basically no such ancient existences. Your Abba, don't trick me. Jiang Pengji thought about it and a bold and exciting idea emerged in her mind. Old chief, is there a store near the market? Can you help me buy something? Your Abba, what? TT. Your Abba, Jiang Xiaojiu. Say that again. Jiang Pengji said, BYT, or condoms for short. Old chief, I need it urgently. It's bad for my body if I hold it in for too long. Your Abba, the Federation is doomed. She was sent here to capture the sky brain that was causing trouble. What was she here for? To flirt with a man? If the next marshal behaved like this, the Federation would be doomed. Jiang Pengji felt helpless. She had been in this shabby place for almost 10 years. She didn't mind being a single dog all the time. The problem was that she had finally found someone who suited her taste. It would be too cruel to let her be a nun. A feast for the eyes was placed in front of her, but she was not allowed to eat. She could only look but not eat. If she held it in for too long, she would get sick. She could only blame the previous system for being too trashy. It didn't even sell condoms in the system store. It was called a palace intrigue streaming system in vain. Which palace intrigue system didn't sell adult products? Old chief, since it's not easy for the baby to get out of singlehood, please do me a favor. Jiang Pengji was led astray by the spoiled and cute behavior of the salted fish in the streaming room. She almost disgusted the old chief who knew her inside out. Your Abba, come on, a baby? A giant baby? How old is the guy? Jiang Pengji said, after his birthday this year, Zixiao should be 28. Your Abba, he's not even 30. He's still underage. Are you a beast? Jiang Pengji covered her chest and suppressed the urge to use force with great difficulty. Smiley face angle, in this world, men generally get married at 15 or 16. They are considered adults at 20. Zixiao is an older unmarried man. Jiang Pengji typed this paragraph with tears in her eyes. She was not a beast who liked underage men. The old chief was silent for a long time before he replied. Your Abba, I'll go to the snack street to grab some skewers. I'll buy some for you after I'm done. Jiang Pengji said, Old chief, you're so nice. By the way, if it's convenient, can you mail me some medicine that can speed up healing and reduce fever? Your Abba, do you still need medicine when the battle is so intense? You're indeed a beast. Jiang Pengji was stunned when she saw the reply. The old chief's profile picture dimmed. A golden system notification appeared. Your good friend, your Abba, has gone offline. Jiang Pengji, wait, listen to her explanation. The salted fish could not see the content of the conversation between Jianghu and the old chief. They could only see her fingers tapping in the air. They were probably chatting privately. As time passed, their streamer revealed various expressions that betrayed her character. The salted fish viewers were stunned. Tudu Feichio, I've confirmed the look. It's undoubtedly a big shot. Shou Shigu, what did they talk about? Why does it feel like the streamer's background is gloomy? The viewers wanted to at the old chief, but they were dumbfounded when they realized that he had gone offline. Of course, that was not the end. When they saw Wei Ci lying on the bed with a pale face, they were extremely worried. Itua Huanxiao, it's only been one night, right? Hasn't it been a year? Why has Beauty Ci become a patient? Looking at the spots where the white bandages were, there was still blood seeping out of many places. The salted fish viewers felt their hearts ache. Jiang Pengji looked at Wei Ci's appearance. Her originally cheerful mood became heavy. When will he wake up? She asked, holding her cheeks. The salted fish in the streaming room told her that the sleeping beauty needed a kiss to wake up. Jiang Pengji smiled and leaned over to kiss him on the lips. She muttered, "Are you awake?" It doesn't seem to work. As she spoke, Wei Ci's long and thick eyelashes trembled slightly. He slowly opened his eyes. Chapter 14:12. Our sleeping beauty has woken up. Squeak when you wake up next time. You'll scare people if you suddenly open your eyes. Jiang Pengji got up calmly, looking like a gentleman, as if she was not the one who had taken advantage of him just now. She took a wet towel and wiped Wei Ci's face. Her actions were not considered gentle, but they were not rude either. It made someone feel very flattered. My lord? Wei Ci was still a little confused. When he opened his mouth, his voice was not only soft but also very hoarse. Don't move first, or your injury will split open again. Just lie down obediently. Jiang Pengji pressed her right hand on his shoulder to prevent him from getting up. Wei Ci had overestimated his situation and had to lie back down. He looked at Jiang Pengji and blinked. His eyes were still clear and dark, and his gaze was focused and serious, as if he was looking at some treasure. Wei Ci hesitated for a long time, but he did not dare to ask. He seemed to have dreamed that his lord had turned into a red-haired woman, and her facial features were quite foreign. When he woke up, his lord was still the same as before. He could not help but heave a sigh of relief. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Jiang Pengji had just instructed the servants to serve the warm porridge when she met Wei Ci's gaze. Wei Ci shook his head slightly and secretly swallowed his doubts. Jiang Pengji said, "What happened last night will not happen again." Wei Ci was still alive, which was a blessing in disguise, but the scene at that time really scared her. She had seen all kinds of bloody scenes, but the scene of Wei Ci lying in a pool of blood scared her so much that her whole body turned cold. Wei Ci's eyes darkened when he heard that. The memories before he fainted seemed to have been opened, and he could not help but shiver. Apart from committing suicide in his previous life, it was the first time he had been so close to death. While he was lost in thought, his lips touched the soup spoon that still had some warmth. Wei Ci seemed to be scalded by the warmth and hurriedly refused, "My lord, you can't. You're a patient and you still expect to be self-reliant?" Jiang Pengji frowned and pretended to be angry. "Just eat when I tell you to." Wei Ci lowered his eyelids slightly and swallowed the spoonful of porridge with his lips slightly parted. He said in a low voice, "Thank you, my lord." Jiang Pengji smiled and said, "That's more like it." Wei Ci was a very obedient patient. He was also quite cooperative and finished a bowl of plain porridge in no time. She asked people to move a portion of the important government affairs to Wei Ci and put on a posture of not wanting to move for the time being. "I'll stay with you. Call me if you feel uncomfortable." Wei Ci nodded his head in agreement. He stared at her straight-back view in a daze and could not bear to blink for a long time. Jiang Pengji dipped her pen in the ink and carefully dealt with the documents. It didn't take long for her to finish a small stack. At this moment, he heard a familiar chime. His private chat was ringing. "You're Abba, that's really surprising. I didn't expect a hands-off shopkeeper to be marking documents for the first time." When he had just retired, the old commander had received many complaints from his former subordinates. As the commander of the army, Jiang Pengji did not neglect her duties, but she was not diligent either. To put it bluntly, she was the standard hands-off boss. She was willful and eccentric. With such a superior, the adjutants were doomed. This was because Jiang Pengji would deal with important documents at the first instance. Most of the unimportant work was thrown to the adjutant. Jiang Pengji glanced at the private chat. "The old chief is back from eating skewers? Are you watching the live stream too?" "You're Abba, I'm watching while eating skewers. Is the man next to you the one you fancy?" Jiang Pengji said in a boastful tone, "His name is Wei Ci. His courtesy name is Zixiao. Old chief, I have good taste, don't I?" "You're Abba, you're obsessed with looks." It was no secret that Jiang Pengji was obsessed with looks in the 7th Corps. The old chief naturally knew that. "Do I look like such a shallow person?" It was love at first sight. "Zixiao's inner beauty is more attractive to me." "You're Abba, love at first sight? Wasn't it because of his looks?" Jiang Pengji, she did not know what the old chief had gone through in the past few years. His skills in dissing people were getting better and better. He was not like this in the past. "You're Abba, oh yes, I was busy eating skewers just now. I haven't asked you what model you want. Do you know his size?" Jiang Pengji turned her head to look at Wei Ci and happened to meet his gaze. He was caught red-handed, so he simply closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. "I don't know. I haven't seen it." If I asked him directly, he would probably die of embarrassment. "Why don't you give me a box of all sizes and models?" "You're Abba, you're such a beast," Jiang Pengji was stunned. What was wrong with her? After a while, Jiang Pengji came back to her senses. She said awkwardly, "He's a patient now. I won't kill him just because he's sick." "Old chief, can you have some faith in my moral integrity? Do I look like the kind of person who has no moral integrity?" If she really wanted to do something disharmonious, she would definitely have to wait for Zixiao to recover. Jiang Pengji said that she wanted a box of all sizes and models. After a few minutes, the system prompted, "Your delivery has arrived." She found the honeycomb delivery storage cabinet with familiarity and glanced at the items stored inside. She could not help but give her old chief a thumbs up. Hundreds of boxes of different brands, sizes, types, and flavors were neatly placed in the storage cabinet. There's such a wide variety. "Old chief, are you sure you went to a convenience store?" It was obvious that he was emptying the adult store. "You're Abba, just use it. Why do you have so much nonsense? Remember to pay the bill." Jiang Pengji coughed dryly and touched the money pouch on her waist. She did not check how many pieces of gold and silver were in it. She happily sent the money to him. She had troubled the old chief to specially make a trip to the adult store to buy for her. It would be inexcusable if she did not give him some compensation. Fortunately, they were in different dimensions. If they were face to face, Jiang Pengji was really afraid that he would ask her to warm up without hesitation. If it was her previous body, she would naturally not be afraid. She would have a 50% chance of warming up. Lu Shi's body, the only thing left to do was to be tortured. "If it's all used up, I'll have to trouble you to replenish it." It was not enough to buy for her once. She also had to be responsible for replenishing it. She really wanted to beat Jiang Pengji to death. "You're Abba, my work here has come to an end. I'll be leaving soon. Remember to replenish it as soon as possible." Jiang Pengji did not ask what her job was. She replied honestly, "Oh." After a while, the system continuously prompted, "Your delivery has arrived." Your friend, your Abba, had gone offline. Jiang Pengji took a look. There were many drugs in the storage cabinet. They were not quick-acting drugs or injections that she was familiar with. They were all old-fashioned drugs that had been eliminated for thousands of years. It seems that the old chief's new job is indeed very interesting, she muttered. There was a rustling sound from Wei Si's side. What's the matter, Zixiao? Wei Si coughed awkwardly and asked, Can my lord call the housekeeper over? Si, there are some things. Chapter 14:13. Jiang Pengji understood instantly that the lack of actual combat experience did not hinder the growth of an experienced driver. Considering Wei Si's thin-skinned face, she could only bear with the pain and give up on flirting with him, lest she scared him to death. Jiang Pengji pretended not to understand and said naturally, Okay, I'll call the housekeeper over now. Wei Si nodded with a red face, but he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. If the Lord wanted to get to the bottom of it, he would not know how to deal with it. Jiang Pengji sat in the courtyard and waited for a while. 3 golden system prompts popped up in a row. Your good friend, your father, is online. Your express delivery has arrived. Your good friend, your father, is offline. Jiang Pengji was speechless. The old chief came online just to send her an express delivery. Jiang Pengji could not help but feel warmth in her heart. It felt good to have an acquaintance who cared about her in a foreign land. She glanced at the things in the storage cabinet with a smile. She carelessly lost control of her expression, and her smile was shattered. Look at what her dear old chief had sent her. Shameful names after shameful ones, but not one of them failed to explain their purpose in plain language. Zixiao is in good health. He doesn't need to take these pills. Jiang Pengji sent an offline message to the other party. Not long after, there was a reply. Your father, no matter how good his health is, he's just an ordinary person. I'm just afraid that you don't have self-control and don't know how to control yourself. Do you understand? Jiang Pengji was speechless. She was really not as beastly as the old chief thought. Jiang Pengji felt wronged. Her cold and aloof persona of many years had completely collapsed in front of the old chief. Wei Si solved his personal problems with the help of the old housekeeper. He had to make his bed, burn incense, and open the windows to disperse the smell. When Jiang Pengji came in, he had already returned to normal. My lord, you don't look happy. Did you encounter a difficult problem? Wei Si saw that Jiang Pengji's expression was somewhat gloomy, and he became worried again. Jiang Pengji rolled up her sleeves and said with grievance, Zixiao, although I'm not a gentleman, I won't wallow in the mire with a beast. Now someone is certain that I'm a beast and won't listen to me no matter how I explain. It's so infuriating, so I've decided. Wei Si said, Decided what? Bring out the facts and reason with us? Jiang Pengji narrowed her eyes and said coldly, You might as well live up to your name as a beast. Otherwise, I will feel wronged. Wei Si said, My lord, as long as you're happy. His lord's train of thought had always been different from ordinary people's. Jiang Pengji sighed faintly. Wei Si was baffled. The news of Wei Si waking up spread quickly. Before dinner, several people came to the residence to visit. They all said that Wei Si was blessed and had a good life. Looking at you last night, I thought you were going to be seduced by the king of hell. Fortunately, you survived. It's time for joy to come out of the depths of misfortune. Fengzhen sighed. You live alone in the manor and don't have any relatives to take care of you. If there's anything you want to eat, just send someone to the manor to let us know. Wei Si was grateful for Fengzhen's kindness. Feng Lungzi usually did not behave properly, but he could be relied on during critical moments. Fengzhen continued, It's a good thing that you're all right. Otherwise. TSK, you didn't see what the Lord looked like. Just thinking about it makes me shudder. About the matter between Master and you, after what happened last night, people who didn't know at first probably noticed. Wei Si asked, What's the public opinion like? It was one thing to criticize him, but Wei Si would not do it if the Lord was implicated. There are some signs of the matter between Master and you, but they didn't see it with their own eyes. At most, they have some suspicions. Without evidence, what would they dare to say? Feng Zhen said, taking a step back, even if they have the intention to stir up trouble, they have to see if their own necks are strong enough. The matter of you being assassinated and left at the entrance of the alley has not been resolved, and the murderer has not been found. If they dare to cause trouble, will the Lord spare them? No one could figure out that Wei Si's body was being manipulated. They thought that some force had assassinated Wei Si to provoke Jiang Pengji. As long as the murderer was not caught, Jiang Pengji would be a barrel of gunpowder that would explode at the slightest provocation. Who would dare to commit a crime under such circumstances? Wei Si did not say how he got the injuries on his body. He couldn't possibly say that he stabbed himself, could he? He could only keep his mouth shut and let others speculate and doubt him. Besides Feng Zhen, Feng Jin, Qiguan Rang, Su Ku, and the others also visited one after another. They did not disturb the patient. After exchanging a few words, they got up and left. It was impossible for Jiang Pengji to watch over Wei Si at all times. When his injuries were slightly better, she had to go elsewhere to busy herself. Before she left, Jiang Pengji smiled and said, "When Zixiao's injuries are better, I have a gift for you." Wei Si, who did not understand, thought it was a precious gift and immediately declined it. He only agreed after Jiang Pengji persuaded him in every possible way. In the blink of an eye, it was another autumn harvest. Jiang Pengji, the hands-off shopkeeper, had a lot of things to do. This year's harvest is much lower than last year's. What's going on? Jiang Pengji entrusted Wei Si to someone she could trust and temporarily left Xiangyang district. She went to the other districts where the experiment was carried out to check on this year's autumn harvest. She thought that this year would be a bumper harvest with favorable weather. Unexpectedly, the grain harvested per mu was lower than last year's average. The first thing she thought of was corruption. She could not help but frown, scaring the low-ranking official who made the report. She briefly checked the accounts. They were meticulously done and there was nothing wrong with them. The fertility of the farmland is insufficient. After several years of continuous farming, the decline in the harvest is also. The other party's voice became softer as he spoke. Jiang Pengji frowned slightly. She roughly understood what the other party meant. In ancient times, they relied on the most primitive manual labor. Even if the farming tools were updated later on, the productivity was still low. Apart from that, the other problem was the fertility of the farmland. Naturally, more grain was grown in fertile farmland than in barren wastelands. Back then, Jiang Pengji sent people to open up wastelands. Most of the farmland was not fertile. It was barely out of the barren category. Even if the weather was favorable for a whole year and the farmers worked hard. Apart from the harvest in the first few years, the harvest in the next few years would become less and less. She rubbed her brows and said, "Is there no way to improve the fertility of the farmland?" "There is, but the effect is insufficient. The best way is to farm for a few years and recuperate for a year." "Let the farmland recover on its own," Jiang Pengji said, "that won't do. If the farmland is recuperated for a year, won't the food rations of the people and the soldiers be stretched thin?" Just as she finished speaking, the officials revealed a worried expression. "Reporting to my lord, although the harvest in the fields has declined, the decline is not significant. It will not be a problem to farm for a few more years." Chapter 14:14. Ever since he surrendered, Huang Song had been cooped up in his house. After more than half a year, the outside world had almost forgotten about him. Only then did Huang Song dare to go out once in a while. There was nothing fun to do when he went out. He went shopping, walked on the road, listened to books, and watched dramas to kill time. He was bored out of his mind. The most obvious change was that his body had gained weight and his face had become bigger. The 6 well-defined abdominal muscles on his abdomen slowly moved closer to one. The armor that used to fit him perfectly now required him to take a deep breath to put it on. Huang Song was very free, so he dragged Feng Ju, who was equally free, to listen to new books. While listening to the storyteller's novel, they drank wine and ate various snacks. From time to time, they commented on the plot and talked about the situation in the outside world. Their days were very pleasant. "Hey, that person looks familiar." Huang Song was leaning against the window. Occasionally, he glanced at the street below. His sharp eyes noticed that a certain figure looked very familiar. He looked at the other person. The other person seemed to sense his gaze and turned her head to look at him. Huang Song recognized the other person at a glance. He almost choked. Wasn't this person Lu Shi? Where did she crawl back from? She was an overlord of a region. She was dressed in brown and had a cloth wrapped around her head. Her trouser legs were tied up high. The straw sandals on her feet were full of mud. Her exposed calves were also dyed a dirty color. People would believe that she was a farmer in the fields, let alone a feudal lord. Jiang Pengji also saw Huang Song leaning against the window on the second floor. She changed her mind and turned to enter the tea house. Bogeo's days are quite leisurely. Jiang Pengji walked up to the second floor and was almost stopped by the waiter. Seeing that Huang Song was dressed in luxurious clothes and had put on some weight after not seeing him for a few days, the waiter suddenly felt a little jealous. Jiang Pengji walked closer. Huang Song smelled the strange smell on her body. He could not help but pinch his nose and say, "Lanting, did you fall into a cesspool?" Feng Ju also frowned. Obviously, he was quite affected by the smell. Jiang Pengji said, "I didn't fall into a cesspool. Although there is a smell, it's not that bad, right?" Huang Song asked again, "Why are you dressed like this?" "I just came back from the fields. The bunch of useless people said that I was an experienced farmer, so I went deep into the mountains to meet him and asked him everything. The so-called experienced farmer was just a routine operation. It wasted my whole day." Jiang Pengji was so angry that she wanted to put her hands on her hips. Although the old farmer is experienced, many methods are recorded in farming books. It doesn't seem to be very useful. Jiang Pengji was so angry that she wanted to put her hands on her hips. Although the old farmer is experienced, many methods are recorded in farming books. Huang Song was confused. He understood every word Jiang Pengji said, but he didn't know what she was. A vassal went to see some old farmer with experience in farming? She didn't want to rule the world and became a farmer's wife? Huang Song casually asked a few questions, and Jiang Pengji said, "The weather has been good this year, but the harvest is much lower than in previous years. At first, I thought that someone was embezzling, but after a careful investigation, I found out that it was due to the lack of fertility in the fields, which resulted in a drop in the yield per mu. Huang year, they, Huang, and I Jiang, in. Than. From, in. In. S, in. In the eyes of others, Jiang Pengji's action could be regarded as killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. In the long run, the land would become barren fields. If we stop plowing for a year, the food shortage will be unimaginably huge. Jiang Pengji said. Plowing and resting is the last resort. Huang Song asked, "What does Lanting think is the best strategy?" Jiang Pengji said, "Of course, it's to ensure the fertility of the fields and plowing them year after year." It was a chaotic world. Food was in short supply. Wasn't it courting death to plowing and rest at this time? Although Huang Song did not know about farming, he knew that Jiang Pengji was too naive. How could there be such a good thing in the world? Chapter 14-15. Clue. Jiang Pengji curled her lips and said, "Of course I have a clue, but I don't have a specific plan yet." Huang Song was slightly surprised. He knew Jiang Pengji's character. She meant what she said. She would not lie about such issues. If she said that there was a clue to solve the problem of insufficient fertility in the fields, then it was most likely true. Without waiting for Huang Song to ask, Jiang Pengji found a mat and sat down. She frowned. "I went to visit a few experienced farmers, and I found that their experiences could be found in the farming books." Jiang Pengji said, "In other words, the precious experience they have accumulated by dealing with the fields for a lifetime is not very valuable. Apart from these old farmers, the other farmers have no idea how to farm. As a result, the harvest is different. Huang Song listened carefully. Feng Zhu, who was beside him, also revealed a thoughtful expression. For a moment, he ignored the indescribable smell on Jiang Pengji. What's so strange about that? Jiang Pengji rolled her eyes at him and said angrily, there's a big problem here. If everyone uses the old farmers' methods to farm, the harvest will naturally be better. The old farmers' farming experience is accumulated for a lifetime, but their methods are not a secret in the agricultural books. What does this mean? This means that the agricultural propaganda is not in place. I should set up a government office that specializes in farming. Huang Song did not understand the meaning of the word propaganda. After all, Jiang Pengji's words were always so fashionable, but he could guess the meaning based on the context. Set up such a government office? What is it for? To teach people how to farm? Huang Song said with some disdain and confusion. In people's stereotypical impression, the government was either civil or military. Which side could farming be related to? This was the duty of farmers. How could a scholar teach farmers how to farm? Even if they came from a farming family, their goal was to study and not farm. Jiang Pengji chewed on her snacks and said, who said that only those who know how to farm are qualified to teach others how to farm? As long as this person is literate and has the ability to organize the experience in the agricultural books into books, with the experience of the old farmers, and then publicize the content to let more farmers know, won't the effect be seen? Everyone doesn't need to spend a lifetime dealing with the fields to accumulate that little bit of experience. With specific guidance, the harvest in the fields was naturally higher. Don't you think so, Biyao? Huang Song naturally had no way to refute. What Jiang Pengji said made sense, but, you're right, but what does this have to do with the lack of fertility you mentioned? Don't tell me that setting up a government office specializing in farming can solve the problem. Logically speaking, Huang Song should not have intervened in these matters. After all, his identity was a taboo. However, he had forgotten this in a moment of carelessness. By the time Huang Song reacted, the words had already left his mouth. He could only maintain a normal expression and hold on. Jiang Pengji said, of course it has a lot to do with it. That's why I said you're not a cultured person. You don't even know how to farm. Huang Song, he had so many things to say that he didn't know where to begin. Is there a logical relationship between the two? Jiang Pengji said, are you still not convinced? Huang Song said, if you put it that way, I really can't accept it. Although he wasn't very knowledgeable, he was still a talented student under a famous scholar. His level of education was unquestionable. The farmer, in front of him, dressed in brown and walking barefoot in the mud, actually mocked him for not being a cultured person? Huang Song's rebuttal provoked a chorus of jeers from the 5 million viewers in the live stream. Poor Taoist sees your chrysanthemum is poisonous. Come, come, come. Let's guess how long the streamer will use to slap Huang Shaosong in the face. Tudu Feiqiu, slap quickly. Ing Xiao Zui, slap quickly. Yang Lu Xianyatsi, bet on slap quickly. The streamer's slap is always the freshest. She never stays overnight. With the 5 million viewers cheering for her, Jiang Pengji naturally wouldn't let them down. A fresh slap quickly came out. Jiang Pengji said, you say that you're a cultured person. Then do you know that there's a saying in the book of poetry that goes, damp wilt wilt, millet wilt wilt wilt? Huang Song thought about it and nodded. Of course I know. Doesn't this mean that rotten weeds can fertilize the fields? Jiang Pengji curled her lips and continued, Sun Zi also said, covering the earth's surface, pulling weeds to grow grain, and fertilizing the fields with manure is a matter for farmers and commoners. Doesn't this mean that human and animal manure can enrich the fertility of the land? The Book of Xixing also talked about related content. It talked about the wonders of manure and stable manure. From this, it can be seen that there are ways to increase fertility. It's just that ordinary people can't do it. You say that you're a cultured person. Don't you even know these things? Huang Song was speechless, but he didn't know how to refute. It was true that he was a cultured person, but which cultured person would pay special attention to these things? Huang Song was speechless after being slapped in the face by Jiang Pengji, but Feng Ju, who was beside him, was almost disgusted. Jiang Pengji saw Feng Ju's speechless expression and couldn't help but sneer. Feng Ju, do you dislike feces? If we don't use feces to increase fertility, the farmland will be squeezed dry sooner or later. Without these methods, how can the output of the farmland supply the millions of mouths in the world? Feng Ju's eyelids drooped slightly. He didn't want to argue with Jiang Pengji. Jiang Pengji continued, these contents can be found in books, and the records aren't detailed. The specific operation still needs to be tested. I've visited several old farmers in succession over the past few days. I found out that their farmland produces more grain than others, but the plowing period is shorter. However, the farmland itself isn't fertile. This result is definitely not only due to meticulous service, but also due to other reasons. Huang Song nodded as he listened, a thoughtful look on his face. Jiang Pengji spoke until her mouth was dry. She poured herself a glass of water and drank it to quench her thirst. According to what you said, it's indeed necessary to exist. Experiment with various farming methods and fertilizers. After a certain amount of harvest, promote them to the people. Naturally, the people can take fewer detours. Jiang Pengji said, I want to build more public toilets. Huang Song let out a puzzled, ah. The topic had changed too quickly. Public toilets? What are they? A place to use the toilet and change clothes. Ordinary people farm outside. Occasionally, when they have to use the toilet, they always find a place to relieve themselves. Don't you think it's too dirty? It's more convenient for men, but it's inconvenient for women. Jiang Pengji furrowed her brows. She didn't seem to think that it was dirty. If we build public toilets for the people to use, it'll be convenient for the people, and we can also ensure the cleanliness of the streets. At the same time, we can also accumulate fertilizer. Similarly, I think we can also set up some places to raise pigs and sheep. We can run a meat business and use their stables to fertilize the land. In addition, according to my observation, the peanuts from the barbarians are also wonderful. A certain farmer planted them, and the yield per mu of the field is higher than others. Apart from peanuts, many bean plants also have the wonderful effect of fixing nitrogen. Chapter 14:16. Huang Song looked at Jiang Pengji in confusion, as if he could not understand what was in her head. He teased, if you become a landlord, you'll definitely be the most profitable landlord. This was definitely a big landlord who had been held back by his ambition to dominate the world. Even though Huang Song felt that Jiang Pengji's plan was somewhat naive and reasonable, her way of thinking was worth advocating. If everything went as smoothly as she said, how many ordinary people would benefit in the future and how many innocent people would be saved from famine and food shortage? Jiang Pengji squinted her eyes and said unhappily, you want me to be a landlord? You make it sound like I'm not a big landlord now. I don't live as well as a great landowner. They're just a bunch of good-for-nothings who don't even know how to farm. What's the use of keeping them? When the feudal vassals achieved something, which one of them didn't get drunk and sleep on the knees of beauties, and hold the power of the world when they woke up? Wasn't it all for the sake of enjoying the beauty and power at the peak of one's life? What about her? Jiang Pengji felt that her life was one of toil. She had status and power, but no happiness. Jiang Pengji's anger soared. Huang Song was speechless. Farming, this was really too much. After all, most scholars did not even touch this thing. Feng Ju frowned slightly and said, Duke of Lanting's words are too biased and harsh. As the saying goes, every profession has its own specialization. The people under Duke of Lanting's banner each have their own specialties. Farming is not their forte, so it's understandable that they can't do it. You should look for a farmer. Jiang Pengji shook her head and said, Feng Sanlang is wrong. Most of the people I sent to manage the farming have relevant experience and knowledge. It wasn't that they didn't have enough knowledge, but that they stuck to conventions and didn't know how to be flexible. Even I know how to consult farming books to find information related to farming and visit experienced farmers to practice the contents of farming books. Why don't they know how to do this? To put it simply, those who managed the mulberry fields did not put their heart and soul into it. Instead, they focused on the management of the farmers and the harvest. Jiang Pengji did not lack people who could manage with their mouths open. She needed people who were truly focused on the fields. Jiang Pengji said coldly, since they don't have the ability to do so, they shouldn't have occupied the seat and not spilled the beans. Feng Zhu did not continue to refute. After all, it was not suitable for him to get involved in this matter with his current status. Huang Song stepped forward to smooth things over, lest the two of them get angry. Jiang Pengji drank 2 cups of tea from them and only left after she had calmed down a little. After Jiang Pengji left, Feng Zhu said, "This Duke of Lanting is interesting. He doesn't look like someone from a noble family at all." Huang Song raised his eyebrows. "Is that a compliment, Huijie?" Feng Zhu said, "I don't think it's a compliment. I can only say that with a person like the Duke of Lanting, the common people will have a much better life." Huang Song said again, "I remember. Huijie seems to have a classmate from a farmer's family?" Feng Zhu asked him, "There's such a classmate, but Biyao hopes that Zhu can introduce him to you." Huang Song said, "It's not bad if we can form a good relationship with him." Feng Zhu said, "Now that I think about it, I haven't contacted him for many years. I don't even know where he is now." The farmer's family had Shenong as their ancestor. They advocated plowing mulberry and farming. Agricultural production and farmers' thoughts were the mainstream school of thought. However, the farmer's family did not develop well. It was even several times more miserable than the Mahists. At least the Mahists were able to struggle on while at death's door and developed a few loyal followers. However, there was no news about the farmer's family in recent years. It could be said that they were in dire straits. It was unknown if they could find a successor to the farmer's family. Jiang Pengji leisurely returned to the manor. On the way, she even bought a snack from the street. At that moment, the 5 million idle spectators were giving her advice. They recommended various farm manure and farming techniques to her. Jiang Pengji watched them seriously and memorized them with her heart. She ate her snacks as she wandered home. Ding dong. A private message sounded. Jiang Pengji glanced at it. It turned out to be a message from the old chief. "You Abba, why do you have to make it so troublesome? There's an old saying that it's better to teach a man how to fish than to give him a fish." She said, "I know I can go through the back door and beg the old chief to help me purchase farm manure, but it's not a long-term solution. Using farm manure that's hundreds of years ahead of the current era will yield high benefits in the short term, but in the long term, it will kill the possibility of agricultural development in this era. Moreover, the old chief can't always purchase for me, can he? You Abba, pulling a seedling to help it grow will indeed kill the infinite potential. You're very diligent." Jiang Pengji said, "I love what I do. After all, I'm their lord. I have to be responsible for the people under my rule." After all, what she needed was not short-term effects, but long-term development. She had stayed in this world for 10 years and put in a lot of effort. Naturally, she hoped that everything could develop better. Lu Shi was just an ordinary person. No matter how long his life was, there was a limit. She hoped that everything could develop in the best direction after she was gone. You Abba, you've indeed grown a lot with this awareness. When Jiang Pengji first took over the 7th Corps, she received many complaints from her old subordinates. "I used to be young and impetuous." Jiang Pengji coughed awkwardly. "Old chief, don't expose me at this time." After Jiang Pengji begged for mercy, the old chief showed mercy and did not investigate further. "Someone, call Xiao Yu over. Tell him that I have something to discuss." Jiang Pengji wanted to build a public toilet or a livestock farm, which required financial allocation. Of course, she had to find the chief butler to check the account books. Su Ke hurried over and was about to bow when Jiang Pengji stopped him. Xiaoyu, you don't have to be so polite. It's more important to talk about business. I want to build public toilets and livestock farms everywhere to raise livestock such as cows, sheep, and pigs. Send someone to come up with a plan and see how much capital it will cost. Jiang Pengji went straight to the point, but Su Ke was dumbfounded. Why did he have to build a livestock farm and a public toilet out of nowhere? Jiang Pengji explained her purpose in detail. Su Ke's blank expression gradually turned serious. My lord, it's hard to say how much it will cost. Jiang Pengji raised her eyebrows. Why? Su Ke said, what's the size and shape of the public toilets? What's the scale of the livestock farm? How many livestock will be raised and how much manpower will be needed? No matter how capable he was, he needed to know this to determine how much it would cost. Jiang Pengji scratched her head. This. I haven't decided yet. I'll think about it tonight. I'll tell you tomorrow. She was used to being a hands-off boss. She only talked and did not do anything, but now it didn't work. Su Ke said, there's still a long way to go. There's no hurry. Jiang Pengji rested her chin on her hand and said, there's no hurry. If we don't solve this matter as soon as possible, it'll make me feel uncomfortable. If she could not settle everything before the spring plowing next year, the next year's harvest would be affected. How could she not worry? Chapter 14-17. Just as Feng Zhu put down the pen in his hand, familiar footsteps came from the corridor outside the house. Father? Feng Zhu packed up the letter unhurriedly. Seeing that it was Feng Ren, his knitted brows relaxed. Feng Ren saw his movements and raised his eyebrows. Did you ask the servant to look for me just now? What's the matter? Feng Zhu said, Father, you have a lot of connections. I would like to ask you for a favor and pass this letter to a classmate of mine when I was studying. He was in an awkward situation now. He needed to be careful in his communication. Feng Zhu thought about it several times. He felt that it was most appropriate for his father to do this. His second brother, Feng Jin, could also do it, but the two brothers rarely met. After Feng Jin got married, he separated from the family due to various reasons. He did not live with them anymore, so Feng Zhu could only ask his father for help. Feng Ren did not take the letter. He just looked down at the name and signature on the letter. Feng Zhu took the initiative to explain, I met the Duke of Lanting today. I thought she might need this person, so I made a recommendation. Feng Ren's brows relaxed. He reached out to take the letter and asked, why don't you do it yourself? If the recommendation was meritorious, Feng Zhu could use this opportunity to become an official again. As a father, Feng Ren naturally did not want his youngest son to deal with a 3 or 2-year-old kid all day long. Feng Zhu was not born to be a teacher. Asking him to teach and educate people? Misleading the young. Huang Song was also open-minded. He entrusted his daughter to Feng Zhu. Wasn't he afraid that she would be taught to deviate? Feng Zhu said, I have no interest in an official career. I helped to recommend him today because I think the Duke of Lanting's temperament is interesting. Feng Ren sighed secretly. He had already experienced his youngest son's stubbornness. He had no choice but to let it go. Then, who is this person you recommended? Feng Ren asked casually. Whether Feng Zhu had the intention to become an official or not, he took the initiative to use his connections to help Jiang Pengji attract talents. This was a signal of goodwill. Feng Ren naturally did not want Feng Zhu's goodwill. Because of the details, they would not be able to form an alliance but instead become enemies. Feng Zhu saw through his father's thoughts and said coldly, I'm afraid he is the only remaining descendant of the family. This person's surname is Dou, and his name is Shi. His courtesy name is Zhongguang. He was my classmate when I was studying. According to what the Duke of Lanting said today, she might be able to use this person. Feng Ren asked in surprise, Nongfu? Although the House of Agriculture was one of the 100 families, it had been in dire straits for hundreds of years. When Feng Ren was an official in the imperial court, he had never heard of any official who was from the House of Agriculture. Although the Mo family was in a miserable state, at least they still had a few descendants. Now that they had received Jiang Pengji's support, they had the potential to prosper. What about the farmers? Most of the members of the School of Agriculture were officials in agriculture. In layman's terms, they were officials related to agriculture. But because the School of Agriculture was in decline, those officials had nothing to do with the School of Agriculture. Feng Ren was quite shocked to hear that his son was the successor of a certain School of Agriculture. Feng Ren asked Feng Ju, although the Duke of Lanting attaches great importance to agriculture, I've never heard her mention this. In the past, Jiang Pengji needed the disciples of the Mahist family. Even if the Mahist family and the Confucians were at odds, she would specifically look for the disciples of the Mahist family. Now that they needed the people of the agricultural family, why wasn't there any news about it? Feng Ju briefly explained what he had bumped into that day. In his opinion, Jiang Pengji was indeed an interesting person. I see. This is like her style. Feng Ren showed a cautious and approving expression. Then, what can he do? If he was a talent, it would naturally be a good thing. If he was a mediocre talent, not only would he bring harm to the people, but others would also criticize Feng Ju, who had introduced him, for getting into trouble for no reason. Feng Ren's heart ached for his youngest son, so he naturally had to help him control the situation. Feng Ju said, it's hard to say about his talent, but his temperament and work style are what the Duke of Lanting needs the most. What did Jiang Pengji need the most? She needed a talent who was down to earth, hardworking, obsessed with agriculture, and willing to compile agricultural books to benefit the people. Even if this person was not from the School of Agriculture, as long as he met these conditions, he would most likely be appointed by Jiang Pengji. He did not need a lot of professional knowledge, but he must have professional self-restraint. After thinking about it, the candidate recommended by Feng Ju just happened to meet her standards. That's good. Feng Ren nodded and said, as long as this person hasn't moved to another place, I will find a way to send the letter to that person. To avoid wasting time, it's best to inform the Duke of Lanting about this. As long as this person is under the rule of the Duke of Lanting, he will definitely be found. Although Feng Ju and that person were classmates, they did not have much contact. He only vaguely remembered where the person was from, but he did not even know his home address. Feng Ju said, I heard that this person's ancestor served as an agricultural official for several terms during the Xia dynasty. If we follow this clue, we should be able to find him. At the same time, Jiang Pengji also thought of the School of Agriculture after being reminded by the audience in the streaming room. Since she pinned her hopes on the development of science and technology on the Mo family, the School of Agriculture would naturally be indispensable in the development of agriculture. Jiang Pengji searched for information on the School of Agriculture overnight. After reading it, she had a hunch that it would be difficult to find people from the School of Agriculture. The School of Agriculture was roughly divided into two categories. The first category advocated sowing hundreds of grains and advised people to plow mulberry so that they could have enough food and clothing. The second category was related to their political ideology. For example, the ruler and his ministers plowed and ate together. In layman's terms, the ruler should plow and cook together with the people. From a modern point of view, this was promoting equal labor for everyone. There seemed to be nothing wrong with it, but would the feudal rulers in ancient times care about this? Seeing this, Jiang Pengji knew why the School of Agriculture was worse off than the Mo family. This political ideology was like stepping on a landmine. In this aspect, the Confucian school was more favored by the rulers. It was no wonder that it was later revered as the head of the 100 schools of thought. Speaking of which, can I find a decent successor for the School of Agriculture? Jiang Pengji was not confident about this. Kojiao Chi fan, what are you afraid of? Streamer, you have to believe that you are the chosen one. The talents you need will automatically come to you. Wuxing Dianji, you might even be able to cultivate an ancient version of the father of paddy. Kenbi Zhongji, even salted fish have dreams. As the chief instructor of 5 million salted fish, the streamer must be the most salted one. Some salted fish are not serious, but some salted fish are very serious. Kumiko Lemon, actually, I've always had a doubt. Didn't the school of Mo and the Confucian school not get along? Why can Zhang Ping, Xiao Guang, and the others receive high salaries and treatment in the Confucian school? I've watched the streaming for many years, but I've never seen them fight because of the difference in ideology. Chapter 14:18. Canteen Daffin Auntie, I don't agree. Speaking of scheming, isn't the streamer the ancestor? Can low-level scheming be *cheese attract her interest? He deeply suspected that this was the main reason why Jiang Pengji liked practical people. Not long after, the bullet screen received tens of thousands of likes, and it suddenly became a hot topic. Jiang Pengji was speechless. These salted fishes were too much. Did she look like a person with a belly full of evil ideas? Jiang Pengji coughed softly. She could not see the awkwardness of being exposed. She highly affirmed the speculations of the serious salted fishes and chose to ignore the unserious bullet screen. Old driver is right. That's the general situation. Jiang Pengji supported her cheeks and said, I only need practical people. Those scheming fellows don't seem to have any other use other than wasting the salary I give them. They occupy the latrine but don't shit. What do I need them for? If there are too many troublemakers who stir up internal strife, it will easily corrupt the atmosphere. It will be difficult to lead the people's hearts. It was not that people who were good at scheming were useless, but for Jiang Pengji at the current stage, their value was too little. No matter how one looked at it, she admired practical people more. Because industry thrives the country. Jiang Pengji rarely called out names. Naturally, she did not know that the old salted fish was so happy that he jumped 3 feet high. The corners of his mouth were about to reach his ears. Lo si ji lianmeng, sob sob sob, the streamer's voice is so nice. I feel like I'm blessed by the moon god and Cupid at the same time. Mama, did you hear that? The sweetheart I've been chasing for 10 years finally took pity on me. She called me old driver. The salted fish screamed crazily in his heart. Mujio Yijio Wanli, you're one of the ancient big shots in the streaming room. Be more reserved. The salted fish who was not called out smiled on the surface, but his heart was burning with jealousy. The bullet screen was full of emojis of secretly gritting teeth in jealousy. 5 million salted fishes. Why did they get special treatment? This luck was even more enviable than winning the lottery with 5 million yuan. No matter how lucky the salted fishes were, they were still not as lucky as Jiang Pengji. She was worried about finding a suitable candidate. The next day, Feng Ren paid her a visit and tactfully mentioned that Feng Zhu was recommending talents for her. Jiang Pengji's hands trembled and she raised her eyebrows in surprise. Even the way she addressed Feng Zhu became more intimate. Huijia's schoolmate? Jiang Pengji was a person who held a grudge. Feng Zhu was indifferent to her, so she addressed Feng Zhu as Feng Sanlang. Since Feng Zhu had expressed his goodwill to her, she might as well change her attitude. Feng Ren didn't notice it. He said with a smile, my son admires that person very much. He should be good. Jiang Pengji asked, where is he? If that person lived very far away, it would take 2 to 3 months for Jiang Pengji to conquer him. It would take too much time. When Feng Ren came to see Jiang Pengji, he naturally knew her address. Coincidentally, the man was from Shangyang County's Yang Mountain. His ancestor had been an agricultural official several times, so following this trail was easy to find. So you're saying that he's from the same hometown as you? If he is truly talented, I would like to recruit him to work for me. Jiang Pengji finished speaking with a smile, but soon after, she revealed a somewhat awkward expression. She said, there's something that you don't know. The promotion of talents this time was related to the livelihood of the people, so the candidates had to be very careful. I'd like to go and take a look myself, but I'm busy with worldly affairs and can't get away. Go there personally? Feng Ren was shocked and secretly speechless. It was just a farmer's talent. She could just send an official document to recruit him. Why did she need a feudal lord to go there personally? For this talent to go there personally, it showed that her next move was extremely important. At least it could cause a great change in the power structure. In the blink of an eye, several thoughts flashed through Feng Ren's mind. Jiang Pengji acted as if she didn't see it. She continued, speaking of which, the construction of the branch of the Jinlin Academy in Shangyang County is about to start. Feng Ren instantly understood. He smiled bitterly and said, Master Lanting is busy with affairs. I'm afraid you can't do it yourself. If you don't mind my old age and incompetence, why don't you entrust this matter to me? Coincidentally, I'm also going to Shangyang County to supervise the construction of the branch. I can handle both matters on the way. Other than Qingqing, Feng Ren, Yuan Jing, and Wan Xian, these great scholars were precisely not Jiang Pengji's aides and retainers. She couldn't order them around at will. For example, regarding the branch of the Jinlin Academy, she had discussed with these educational experts. She didn't make arbitrary decisions. This time, she wanted to entrust Feng Ren to make a trip on her behalf. Jiang Pengji also had to subtly hint crazily. Feng Ren accepted it tactfully. If he didn't, he could pretend to be deaf and mute. Fortunately, Feng Ren didn't refuse. Instead, he agreed with a smile. Thank you for your understanding. I'll write a letter now. Feng Ren finally couldn't hold back his curiosity. He asked, he's just a farmer. If he's a genius, he's not worthy of being treated so seriously by Master Lanting. I have many questions in my mind. Therefore, I dare to ask, why does Master Lanting value him so much? Jiang Pengji said, this person may be able to benefit millions of people and eliminate famine. Not to mention writing a letter, it's not too much to go there personally. Feng Ren's heart was pounding. He was a little stunned. Could the person recommended by his unreliable youngest son really carry Jiang Pengji's high hopes? Talents couldn't be recommended blindly. If the recommended person didn't have any real ability, it would ruin the reputation of the guarantor. He deliberated and said, if that's the case, I'll make a trip on behalf of Master Lanting. If that person is really talented, I'll definitely bring him back. Feng Ren was also a sly old fox. He didn't say too much. Instead, he left a way out. If the person was talented, he'd bring him back. If not, he'd stop. Anyway, he couldn't blame it on him. Jiang Pengji saw through him but didn't say anything. She smiled but didn't say anything. Not only did she give Feng Ren the letter for the expedition, but she also gave him the draft of the agricultural book that she'd sorted out a while ago. If that person was well-versed, he'd definitely see the value of those drafts. If he wasn't well-versed, Jiang Pengji wouldn't have wasted her effort. From the beginning to the end, the salted fish in the streaming room was the most surprised. Kuzagio Chi-fan, I'm giving the streamer 666 brainlessly. She's indeed the chosen one. She gets whatever she wants. Yesterday, she was still worried about the farmer. Today, Feng Ren came to deliver a pillow. What could be more awesome than this? Liren Choshuang, Feng Ren, you've gained countless fans with this move. Looking at the screen full of 666 comments, Jiang Pengji couldn't help but laugh. She secretly analyzed the hidden intention of Feng Ren's move. She lowered her head and was lost in thought. Unexpectedly, the direction of the bullet screen in the streaming room changed instantly. When she came back to her senses, countless exclamation marks almost drowned her in the bullet screen. What's happening? Tudu Feichio, streamer, look at the streaming room. The streaming room? What's wrong with the streaming room? Jiang Pengji was surprised. She carefully looked for the difference in the streaming room and found that there was an additional announcement. To thank the audience for their support over the years, the streaming room has unlocked the segment Dream of 1,000 Years. Viewers, old and new, are welcome to participate. What the hell? Chapter 1419. Kwai Xiao Meng Xian, a class representative can explain. What is this dream of 1,000 years? Blue drawer, it sounds like something I don't understand, but it sounds awesome. Carefree hee, no. It's more like a magical welfare reward. I'm super curious. The salted fish on the red bullet screen was surprised and curious, like a baby. The salted fish on the blue bullet screen was one-sided. Eat Kwai Duo Zhangda, oh my god, have you fallen? Dream of 1,000 years, is out. Yang family's little princess, is Dream of 1,000 years going to be reopened? TSK. Are those idiots going to pounce on us again? Siju and Bourgeois, let's go. I thought this streamer was a decent streamer. I didn't expect her to hide so much. Scary. The salted fish on the blue bullet screen obviously knew what was going on. The bullet screen was filled with shock, fear, disappointment, scolding, and some even said that Jiang Pengji was a scheming B***tch. After pretending to be a vassal for so many years, she finally couldn't help but reveal her fox's tail. It was disgusting. Seeing that the content on the blue bullet screen was getting more and more outrageous, many of the salted fish on the red bullet screen could no longer sit still. They all stood up and cheered for Jiang Pengji. They hadn't even figured out what the Dream of 1,000 Years program was. Why did these guys start to hate the person they liked? Kneel and call daddy, hey. I can't hold my temper anymore. What do you mean? Scolding people has to follow the basic rules. Did our streamer offend you? If you don't want to watch the stream, get out. Don't occupy the latrine and take up our spot. Do you really think salted fish like us are useless? The salted fish on the red bullet screen had always claimed to be Jiang Pengji's loyal fans. After all, they were Jiang Pengji's solid support since the beginning. The salted fish on the blue bullet screen were just a group of guys who joined later. If they weren't separated by a dimension, they would have started fighting. Did Lama, bah. Don't blindly protect this streamer. I've finally seen through her. No matter what persona she has, she's still a beggar on the internet. The previous streamer was also a talented woman. She was a gentle, elegant, and dignified classical beauty. She applauded for the sake of watching the stream with men. Wasn't the so-called Dream of 1,000 Years a platform for chicken recruitment? The previous host only went online after he was done with his F***king persona and pretentious enough. Now that the host is the strongest duke in the world, the price of going online will definitely be much more expensive than before. This viewer's bullet screen received a lot of likes from the blue bullet screen salted fish. Because of the previous time traveler, Dream of 1,000 Years was more famous than Tavern Heaven on Earth in their world. As long as one had money, one could place a task in the Dream of 1,000 Years section of the live broadcast room. After the host accepted the task, the audience could experience sensory enjoyment in their dreams that was infinitely close to reality. A rich man could order and choose to have sex with any woman he wanted. Previously, there were many tycoons who placed orders to have sex with the former host in the dream. After they were tired of it, they ordered other women. This was simply a large-scale brothel. Speaking up to this point, some people had doubts. The previous host had gone too far. Could it be that no victim had found any clues? How did he find out? The previous host, who was also the queen of time travel, Hui Yun, had the help of the system. She could casually throw out a loyalty talisman and control an ordinary person, making them dead set on her. If the transmigrator couldn't bear to waste the loyalty talisman, she had other evil ways to control people, ensuring that the victim wouldn't find out anything after the matter was over. Even if it was a young girl who had never done anything, she had a way to deceive everyone after the deed was done. She ensured that the girl's future husband wouldn't be able to tell that his wife had already lost her virginity to countless men. Using this method, the transmigrator successfully worked as a brothel keeper for more than a decade. The Dongqing Palace and Zhongzhou Palace were considered the hardest hit areas. The palace maids and concubines suffered greatly, and it was unknown how many innocent women were harmed. To this day, Many otakus still had hundreds of gigabytes of videos stored on their computers, enlightening countless youths with X knowledge. The blue bullet screen salted fish naturally didn't know these inside stories. However, when the transmigrator was a host, the live broadcast room was indeed foul. 9 out of 10 times, there would be inharmonious content. Many otakus couldn't climb over the wall to watch Japanese porn, so they simply collected the recordings of the live broadcast room. The content of the recordings was more hardcore and explosive than many other movies. Most importantly, they didn't charge money. A few years later, these recordings had a huge impact on the production chain of a certain business in Japan, causing a period of depression and loss. All kinds of dark history could be said to be innumerable. The blue bullet screen salted fish saw the words, "Dream of 1,000 years," and subconsciously thought of the fear of the live broadcast room being dominated by the 8th letter. Under Jianghu's management, the live broadcast room had already escaped from the shadow of the previous host. People had also forgotten about the dark history, but it didn't mean that they had forgotten it. All they needed was an opportunity, and all the memories would come back. With the help of the blue bullet screen, the red salted fish finally knew what "dream of 1,000 years" meant. However, to Faccio, the host would never do such a thing. Otherwise, I would live broadcast eating rice fields. Sankei, I agree with the ancient big boss. Goeikai guofengxio, I'd rather believe in the sexy host who kills people online than believe that she would do such a thing. I realize that you guys really don't have a clue. Before you suspect the host, ask yourselves, in terms of status, wealth, and power, can you compare to the host? In terms of talent, temperament, and looks, can you compare to beauty ci? Lo siji lianmeng, you don't even have the right to touch the corner of her clothes. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you have some money for breakfast? The 5 million salted fish on the red and blue bullet screen, that's heart-wrenching, buddy. The salted fish clutched their chests and vomited blood. The ancient big boss was indeed an ancient big boss. His words were sharp and ruthless. With a few words, he could cause an infinite psychological trauma to people. They didn't have Wei Ci's talent, temperament, and looks. What made them think that the host would like them? They didn't have the status, wealth, and power of the host. What made them think that the host would care about their money for breakfast? In summary, they really didn't even have the right to touch the corner of the host's clothes. Ing, ngong carrot ngong, be a baboon, although it's the truth, cough cough, the big boss should be merciful. After all, salted fish have a fragile glass heart. The live broadcast room was treacherous and unpredictable. Jiang Pengji lowered her head and carefully read the introduction of "Dream of 1,000 Years." System, "Dream of 1,000 Years." Past life and present life. Guess who you were in your past life. In order to thank the audience for their support over the years, and to give the audience the opportunity to have close contact with their favorite host, every week, one lucky audience member will be selected to go through 12 hours of dream travel. Jiang Pengji, this "Dream of 1,000 Years" was completely different from the "Dream of 1,000 Years" that the salted fish were talking about. But Chapter 1420. You may not believe it, but the African baby finally became popular and transmigrated. The original poster posted a screenshot on the first floor. There was a line of golden words on it. Congratulations to the viewer, Yi Wu Yenling, for winning the first "Dream of 1,000 Years" event. The post sank as soon as it was posted. Not long after, it was scooped up by countless salted fish and quickly became a popular post. Comment 33, F***CK. I found a shameful lucky emperor. The content of the post makes people feel uncomfortable. Comment 108, I never expected that a group of ancient big shots would be defeated by a green-skinned guy from the forum. The forum was called the Empress Streaming Forum. One look at the name and you knew it was a forum for the live stream. The members were very active. The ancient big shot, Faccio, was the founder of the forum and the editor of the related magazine. The members who stayed in the forum for years were mostly at the yellow underwear level. The green-skinned guy was a newcomer. Who wouldn't be jealous? They were loyal to the streamer. Why didn't such a good thing happen to them but to a green-skinned guy? Comment 999, OP, open the door. I'm going to hack you to death. Ah, comment 1008, sob, I thought it was photoshopped. I didn't expect it to be real. The probability was 1 in 5 million. With such good luck, why didn't you buy a lottery ticket? Why are you fighting for a slot in the live stream? I was so angry that my heart ached. I was jealous. Comment 2035, I'll sharpen my knife in secret. When I'm done, I'll hack you to death. Comment 4088, I'm waiting for the OP to transmigrate and fail. Comment 5555, it's our red team who got the first blood. If the next dimension got the slot, wouldn't we vomit? The OP helped me send a message to the streamer. I've washed up, stripped, and waited for her on the bed. Why isn't she here yet? It's already 520. Most people were envious, jealous, and hateful. A small number of people treated the OP like a koi fish and wished they could repost it every day. The OP, everyone is so passionate. I'll cherish the opportunity to touch the streamer's hand. I'll tell you how it feels when I come back. After attracting a wave of hatred, the OP quickly went offline. Not long after, the 5 million salted fish saw a small screen appear in Jianghu's live stream. They clicked on it and saw an unfamiliar live stream. The streaming room was attached to Jianghu's room, so they could watch it on the same screen. Jianghu clicked on it too. Oh my god, I actually transmigrated. In the picture, the woman with a delicate and classic appearance widened her eyes in shock. She raised her hands and turned them over and over. The woman's hair was combed into a woman's bun. She was supposed to be gentle and virtuous, but she made an action that was completely inconsistent with her temperament and appearance. She gently pinched her face and couldn't help but let out a cry of pain and let go. I just fell asleep on my bed, and as soon as I opened my eyes, I ran here. I'm shivering. Host, where are you? The woman looked at the screen of the live stream with tears in her eyes and could not help but cry for help. Although it was only a 12-hour experience, she was shocked and scared to suddenly appear in an unfamiliar environment. The group of salted fishes fell silent. Jianghu coughed softly and immediately sent a bullet screen to her. Host V, don't panic. Look around and see if there's anything to prove your identity. Oh, got it. The woman was not used to the clothes on her body and almost stepped on the hem of her skirt. Fortunately, there was no one around to see her embarrassment. She quickly moved to the bronze mirror on the dressing table and tried hard to stretch her face in front of it. She looked left and right and murmured, I'm sure it's a soul transmigration. There were some bamboo slips on the table in the room. She tried hard to identify them. She stared until her eyes were sore and barely recognized what was written on them. Zong. Guang. This name is quite masculine. Is this body called Zong Guang? She flipped through the other slips. Some were Shanju Sanren, some were Zong Guang, and some were Do Xianren. So, what is this body called? While she was puzzled, the door of the bedroom was gently opened. A woman dressed as a maid bowed gently and said, My lady, there's a distinguished guest at home. The woman had her back facing the maid, so the maid could not see the stiff expression on her face. Dumbstruck, crazy screamed JPG, who could tell her what to do next. Ah, help. When the salted fishes saw her reaction, they all convulsed with laughter. This reaction was too funny. Perhaps the heavens heard the woman's voice. A prompt appeared at the bottom of the streaming screen. System prompt, please report to the master. I'll go over now. The woman forced herself to stay calm. Her voice was stiff as she imitated the system prompt and replied to the maid. The maid was surprised but did not think too much. The lady had caught a cold a while ago and only got better after half a month. It was normal for her voice to be stiff. After sending the maid away, the woman suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. She collapsed on the ground like a dehydrated salted fish. She muttered to the streaming screen, SOS. Based on the current situation, this body did not seem to belong to a commoner. What posture should she use to not expose herself? Speaking of which, will the baby not last 12 hours before being eliminated as a demon? The salted fishes laughed after hearing that. 12 hours? Can't you be a little more ambitious? The woman looked dispirited. She took a deep breath and the scenes and images of Jianghu streaming appeared in her mind. She secretly encouraged herself. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. You have a solid backing of 5 million and the streamer behind you. It turned out that the woman's worries were unnecessary. She was here to experience it. It was not like she could not really go back. The system would naturally open the door for her. This family's surname was Dou. This was the territory of Yangshan in Shenyang County. The woman blinked her eyes after hearing that. As one of the fans of the streaming room, she naturally knew the latest developments in the streaming room. The surname Dou in Yangshan in Shenyang County, could it be that this family is the talented farmer that the streamer is looking for? The woman muttered to herself. On the surface, she ordered the servants to prepare to receive the guest according to the system's prompt. The maids did not suspect anything. Instead, they felt that the lady was exceptionally straightforward that day. The only thing that was awkward was, she seemed to be suffering from an eye disease. Her eyes could not help but stare at a certain place. It looked strange and scary. There was a distinguished guest at the door today. The guest was the well-known former head of the Feng family, Feng Ren, one of the famous scholars. Others did not know why Feng Ren was there, but the woman knew that he was there on behalf of Jianghu to recruit Dou Shi. Thinking of this, the woman suddenly recalled, isn't Zhongguang Dou Shi's courtesy name? This body is most likely Dou Shi's wife? She muttered to herself. She followed the system's prompt and turned left and right. When she reached the outside of the main hall, she heard Feng Ren's voice. System, please pay attention to the prompt. Do not do anything that will ruin the character's design, so as not to cause trouble to the original owner. The woman nodded quickly. She quickly reacted and stopped what she was doing. Others could not see the streaming room's screen and the system's prompt. Her action looked like she was possessed. Sigh, I really don't know how the streamer can ignore the streaming room for 10 years and not be affected by the bullet screen. The bullet screen was full of obscene words and jokes. She held it in until her cheeks hurt. As she muttered, she realized that the two people in the hall who were chatting were looking at her. The woman was speechless. Oh my. Chapter 1421. As a loyal audience in the streaming room, the woman occasionally daydreamed about transmigration. If she was lucky enough to transmigrate, what would she do? Would she go with the flow and be a reserved and noble lady of an aristocratic family, enjoying the authentic ancient customs? Or would she rebel and release her nature to live a modern woman's style in the strict ancient times? Or would she learn martial arts from literature and imitate the streamer to be a heroine who was not inferior to any man? Would she be full of vigor and vanish into thin air while talking and laughing? However, no matter how much she imagined and daydreamed, it could not offset the embarrassment and nervousness when she was in the arena. Even if the transmigration was only for 12 hours, she did not want to lose her reputation as a Mary Sue in front of 5 million people. Kojiao Chi fan, don't panic, lucky queen. I believe you are the fattest. Shall we Chuangduan, hypnotize yourself that you are a streamer with an aura of 2.8 meters. What are Feng Ren and Dou Shi? The woman could not help but twitch the corner of her mouth. She also wanted to calm down, but the bullet screen in the streaming room was too much of a hindrance. She could not imagine how Jianghu did it. How could she completely ignore the bullet screen full of obscene jokes? I can't do it. The woman was not an actress. Her ability to control her emotions was only at an ordinary level. Although it could not be said that all her emotions were written on her face, it was not to the extent that she could not show her emotions. She was not aware of it, but others saw the subtle expressions on her face. Sadness, surprise, fear, retreat. All kinds of emotions flashed through her face. Feng Ren was speechless. This was Doxi's wife? Doxi looked at his wife with surprise and worry, but there was no reprimand or displeasure. It could be seen that Doxi and his wife had a very good relationship. Master Feng, this is my wife. Doxi smiled and went forward to hold the woman's hand. She suddenly stiffened and her fingers seemed to shrink back. Doxi was puzzled, but he did not let her break away. Otherwise, it would be difficult to smooth things over in front of Feng Ren. My wife has admired your talent since she was still in her boudoir. Now that she heard that you are a guest in our house, I'm afraid she is overjoyed. Hearing that their idol of many years had come to visit in person, it was understandable that the fans would be too happy to do something unruly. Feng Ren said with a smile, I saw that your mansion is in good order just now. I guess it's because your wife runs the house well and takes care of things well. The woman bowed in a slightly stiff manner. Her cheeks were flushed as she said embarrassedly, I don't deserve your praise. Mister, you're too kind. From an outsider's point of view, her reaction coincided with what Doxi had just said. The awkward atmosphere was immediately alleviated. After sitting down, the woman's cheeks continued to redden, and she did not dare to raise her head to look at him for a long time. Zhang Jike's ping-pong, I broke out in a cold sweat just now. After this stage, the next part should be easier, right? Tout de fait, your acting skills are not bad. Unbeknownst to him, the woman was already crying in her heart. She was really scared and worried. In a completely unfamiliar environment, facing a complete stranger, her heart was in her throat, but she could only brace herself and hold on. Doxi and Feng Ren noticed the woman's uneasiness and embarrassment. Fortunately, both of them were gentlemen, and their current focus had nothing to do with her, so they did not dwell on her. Doxi did not know Feng Ren's purpose this time, but the woman with the script knew. Feng Ren came to test Doxi's ability. If Doxi met the requirements, he would be promoted immediately. The woman tried her best to sit upright, and secretly sighed. The feeling of watching a live broadcast and being there was really different. She came just in time, and Feng Ren and Doxi had not even exchanged greetings. Doxi was secretly guessing Feng Ren's purpose this time. Could it be that Feng Ren's purpose this time was related to his own future? But, how could he be worthy of Feng Ren's personal visit? As far as he knew, there were a lot of talents in the Lanting General's camp. How could he be short of one person, let alone Feng Ren? While he was secretly wondering, Feng Ren, the old fox, had already begun to test him. Doxi did not realize this, but the surrounding women were so excited that they clenched their hands on their knees, wrinkling the fabric of their clothes. The show was about to begin. May I ask, sir, why are you here? Doxi secretly pondered, and he also had a faint expectation in his heart. He tentatively asked Feng Ren, Yang Mountain is remote, if you want to do something, it might not be convenient, as Zhong Guang said, I do have some difficulties here. Feng Ren said with a smile, under the order of the Lanting General, I am supervising the construction of the branch of the Golden Scale Academy, and the location of the branch is near Yang Mountain. I'm ashamed to say that I don't know much about Yang Mountain. If I want to build a big building here, I need help from someone who knows everything. Before I left, I heard from Huijie that there was a classmate who lived in Yang Mountain for generations, and he was familiar with construction. Maybe he could help. When I came here, I asked around, and then I shamelessly came to you. Doxi was stunned for a moment. He did not expect that Feng Ren came to him because of Feng Zhu's recommendation. He said humbly, this is just a small matter. Sir, you can just send someone to inform me. Why do you need to come to my house in person? Although it was a help, it was also an excellent opportunity for Doxi, and others could not ask for it. If it was done well, he might be able to build a relationship with the Feng family, and he would have more connections in the future. It's not just for this, Feng Ren said with a smile, recently, I've been compiling books for children, and the content is related to the 100 schools of thought. The 100 schools of thought have a wide range of works, and even the Feng family has not collected many books. I heard from Huijia that Zhongguang is a descendant of the School of Agriculture, so you must have a lot of agricultural books in your house. I shamelessly came to your house to ask for advice from Zhongguang. It would be great if I could borrow 1 or 2 books. After listening to Feng Ren's explanation, Doshi naturally did not doubt it anymore. Instead, he was a little fearful. For a famous scholar to ask for guidance from a nameless junior, the other party was giving him face. How could Doshi dare to casually agree? Feng Ren used this topic to test Doshi's depth. The Feng family had collected a lot of agricultural books, and Feng Ren had also dabbled in this area, so it was not a problem to teach him. Doshi also completely let down his guard, and told him everything he knew. As a small part of the 100 schools of thought, the School of Agriculture had always not been valued. It had been a long time since Doshi talked about the School of Agriculture with someone so freely. Once he started talking, he could not stop talking. He was so immersed in it that he did not notice Feng Ren's smile getting wider. As a bystander, the woman naturally did not want to miss Feng Ren's reaction. Judging from his attitude, Feng Ren was quite satisfied with Doshi. It seemed like there was a chance. When Doshi's mouth was dry from talking, Feng Ren took out a roll from his sleeve and said, I came across something a while ago. This was naturally the draft that Jiang Pengji had given to Feng Ren. Doshi asked, this is? Feng Ren said, looking at the content, it seems to be closely related to the School of Agriculture. Doshi's curiosity was aroused, and he boldly borrowed it from Feng Ren. He did not feel anything at first glance, but when he looked at it carefully, he felt like he had found a treasure. Feng Ren did not disturb Doshi, but waited with a smile. From the corner of his eye, he saw that Doshi's wife was looking at him with a look of understanding. He had the illusion that a junior had seen through his plans. Chapter 1422. The woman saw through it but didn't say it out loud. Feng Ren had a better impression of her. On the other side, Doshi was getting more and more excited. He couldn't help but ask, where did you find this? Feng Ren showed just the right amount of confusion. Why are you so excited? Could it be that this item is a supreme treasure? Doshi suppressed his excitement. I don't know if it's a treasure or not, but if it's used properly, it's worth tens of thousands of gold coins. Although the draft was written carelessly, Doshi could see the value in it. Unlike the obscure and simple farming books, the content of the draft was concise and clear, almost like a vernacular. The content was also very interesting. It went from shallow to deep, progressing step by step, from a rough general category to a detailed description of each subcategory. There were also many farming plans. These plans were fresh to Doshi. This was like a key that opened the door to a new world, giving him a feeling of enlightenment. Oh. Really? Feng Ren pretended to be surprised. Doshi suppressed his excitement and said with a smile, if I didn't know who the author is, I would really like to visit you and have a good discussion. Feng Ren asked, what do you mean? Doshi said, Dongqing is peaceful under the governance of Lord Lanting, but other places are suffering from famine. In the final analysis, it's because the good farmland produces too little food. There are many reasons for limiting the output of farmland, but the most fatal one is the fertility of farmland. The fertility of farmland was a big problem that was difficult to solve. It fundamentally restricted agricultural output. Even fertile farmland couldn't stand continuous farming. Sooner or later, it would degenerate due to the lack of fertility. For sustainable development, they could only choose to stop farming and let the fertility of the farmland recover by itself. Once they stopped farming, it meant that there would be no food production during the farming period, which undoubtedly increased the food pressure. Jiang Pengji had been fighting for years. In order to maintain the supply, she could only cultivate wasteland while farming continuously. In the long run, it was tantamount to drinking poison to quench thirst. Feng Ren nodded and said, what do you mean? I don't know who wrote this book. The content is bold and novel. I've never heard of it. Doshi pointed to the draft and said, even if others think it's wild and unrealistic, I think this person's idea is very logical. I think it must be written by a famous farmer. This person wanted to use manpower to replenish the fertility of the farmland. His plan was clear and specific, and most of it was traceable and reasonable. Many people don't know how to use the fertilizer, but those who know how to use it don't know how much is appropriate. They don't even know how to use it to maximize the benefits of the farmland. This person is very meticulous. Not only did he think of everything, he even provided detailed steps. When he spoke up to her, Doshi spoke with fervor and composure, and he seemed to be unable to stop. The reason why good farmland was called good farmland and had a higher output than ordinary farmland was naturally because the farmland was more fertile. If external forces were used to interfere with the fertility of the farmland could be maintained at an extremely high level of fertility without the need for plowing and fallow. Would there be any need to worry about a high harvest? The Dou family was considered a relatively large and wealthy family in Yangshan. Doshi himself was a member of a farmer's family, so he was very familiar with the process of farming. In order to increase output, he often studied in this area, and he had also summed up a set of farming experience. It was precisely because of this that the Dou family's output was much higher than that of others. However, comparing Doshi's method to the contents of the draft was like comparing a pearl to the bright moon. Looking at the contents of the draft, there should be more than this. Doshi sighed and said, I don't know who it is, but if I'm lucky enough to meet him, I must talk to him through the night. As soon as he finished speaking, Fengren, Madame Dou, and the 5 million salted fish all looked at him strangely. Talk to him through the night? Ha, in your dreams. Tudu Feiqiu, Beauty Ci said that sleeping together and talking to him through the night are all benefits that belong to him. Although Fengren did not know the relationship between Jiang Pengji and Wei Ci, he knew that it was unlikely that a female noble would be too intimate with a subordinate of the opposite sex. Doshi's theory was passable, but he did not know how it would turn out in practice. After all, there would always be people who said one thing and did another. Fengren tricked Doshi into leaving with a few words. Seeing this, Madame Dou also wanted to follow. Doshi advised, Madam, it's very windy outside, and you've just recovered from a cold. It's better for you to recuperate in the manor. The woman did not know how to respond before following him out. Fengren, who was at the side, helped her. Although it's important to recuperate, a proper relaxation can also help with recovery. Your wife's complexion is good, so she should be fine. Doshi said awkwardly, my wife is a woman after all. If I go with you, I'm afraid I'll be a hindrance. Fengren smiled and said, it's okay. Doshi did not know why he came, but this madam seemed to have seen through him and was watching the show from the side. One could imagine that she was also a clear-minded person. Hen Xingzao, oh my god, I don't know why, but when I see Big Boss Fengren smile, I feel creepy. It's more than creepy, the woman muttered to herself. When she was in front of Fengren, she felt that this old fox was more uneasy than she had imagined. The three of them changed into clothes that were convenient for traveling. The woman also changed into a simpler outfit and wore wooden clogs. The woman was embarrassed to find that Fengren and Doshi did not make a sound when they walked, but she was the only one who made a clanking sound when she stepped on the wooden clogs. The woman was speechless. Hum hum hum, nh. Doshi also looked at his wife in surprise, and Fengren looked at her with a faint smile. She was so stressed. She felt that she could be exposed at any moment. I was a little sick earlier. If I've been rude, please forgive me, the system did not prompt her, so she could only rack her brain to think of a way to deal with it. Fortunately, Fengren was not a calculative person, so he did not criticize her. The Dou family had a lot of farmland, and Doshi took care of a few acres himself. They were considered experimental fields. Because of proper care, the crops were growing well. Doshi was not only good at theory, but he was also very good at practice. He knew that the political views of the farmers were not in line with the mainstream, and he did not have any background, so officialdom was not suitable for him. Therefore, although he wanted to become an official, he also knew what he was doing. Most of his thoughts were on how to run the family business. As a rich family in Yangshan, running the farmland well was equivalent to running the family business well. Doshi combined theory with practice, and the harvest of the farmland was very good. Even if it was a disaster year, he could still make a small sum of money. If God was kind to him, he would make a lot of money this year. It was rare to see a landlord as pure and unpretentious as him in this world. You could not see what other landlords looked like, but he had a good reputation in Yangshan. Feng Ren had never worked in the field, but he still had a theory. The woman also had the help of the salted fish in the live broadcast room, and from time to time, she would say something amazing. Feng Ren praised, "Your wife is really not an ordinary woman. With such insight, no wonder you can be in harmony with Zhong Guang." The woman smiled shyly. Chapter 1423. Feng Ren and Doshi chatted happily as if they were old friends. The more Feng Ren knew about Doshi, the more satisfied he was. However, he was not in a hurry to reveal the purpose of the expedition. Instead, he secretly sounded Doshi out and wanted to know what Doshi thought of the Duke of Lanting. No matter how great Jiang Pengji was, there were still many conservative people who did not buy into her. Doshi did not look like a pedantic person, but it was hard to guarantee that he would not be conflicted because of Jiang Pengji's gender. There were precedents of people refusing to conquer because of their gender. I didn't expect Yang Mountain to be such a paradise. Feng Ren smiled as he took off his bamboo hat and put it in front of his chest. With one hand behind his back, he stood beside the field and looked into the distance. He said, "Lanting Duke plans to build a branch here so that the children can stay away from the mortal world and focus on their studies." Doshi smiled and said, "It's a blessing for the people of Yang Mountain that the Duke of Lanting has taken pity on Yang Mountain." Even though Doshi had lived in Yang Mountain for a long time and rarely went out, he had heard of the famous Golden Scale Academy. If the branch could be located in Yang Mountain, it would undoubtedly bring a large number of people to Yang Mountain, and the increase in population would naturally boost the local economy. Feng Ren said, "Oh? Zhong Guang has seen through everything. There would always be people who liked to argue." Many mediocre people felt that the establishment of a branch academy was a bad thing. They felt that it was a huge construction project that wasted manpower and money. Doshi was a commoner, but he could see through everything so clearly, which made Feng Ren like him even more. "I'm just trying to show off in front of an expert." Doshi said humbly, "I don't deserve such praise." Doshi was a wealthy landowner in Yangshan, and he was also the son of a farmer. Naturally, his eyes were closer to the common people. Of course, he knew how good it was for Yangshan to build a branch. Even a pig could take off standing on a wind gap, not to mention a hurricane in the Golden Scale Institution. Humility is a virtue, but you can't undervalue yourself. Feng Ren said with a smile. When the matter of the school division was first announced, many people were not optimistic about it and some even slandered it. There were many famous people among them. Thinking about it, it makes me laugh. These words were indirectly praising Doshi for being as knowledgeable as those famous scholars. Doshi didn't know whether to agree or not, so he could only change the topic. Lord Lanting has the ability to rule the heavens and the earth. It's not easy for ordinary people to see through his thoughts. It wasn't that Doshi was talented, nor was it that the famous scholars who had misjudged him were useless. It was clear that the person in question was too scheming and too capable. The smile on Feng Ren's lips grew wider. Logically speaking, he, who was born in the Confucian school, was unlikely to like Doshi, who was born in the peasant school. After all, the knowledge and political ideas of the two families were in conflict. However, this did not prevent Feng Ren from appreciating Doshi. There weren't many interesting young people like him anymore. From what you've said, Zhong Guang seems to hold the Duke of Lanting in high regard. Feng Ren asked with a smile, "What do you think of her?" Doshi shook his head and said, "A dignified marquis and a wise ruler. How can a commoner judge him?" In a few words, Feng Ren had already gotten what he wanted from Doshi. Doshi held Jiang Pengji in high esteem. If she wanted to subdue him, he would most likely not refuse. With this understanding, Feng Ren felt that he had completed most of his task. His mood was also cleared up. Madame Dou, who was following behind them, looked at Dou Shi's back and secretly gave him 2 thumbs up. This young man has a bright future. Xiao Muji, to show his loyalty in front of 5 million salted fish, this Dou Shi has a bright future. When Miaotsang sure, isn't the point of showing his loyalty to the streamer without knowing it? For Dou Shi, no matter how many salted fish there were, they couldn't compare to the streamer alone. After all, Jiang Pengji was Dou Shi's future superior. The 3 of them left Dou Shi's experimental field and saw a group of servants from rich families waiting at the foot of the mountain. Dou Shi saw the emblem of the Feng family on the carriage and said sensibly, "Sir, you're busy. I won't bother you anymore." Feng Ren smiled and nodded. They agreed to meet next time. Madame Dou watched Feng Ren get into the carriage and put down the curtain. She was stunned for a long time. "Wait. Big boss Feng Ren, have you forgotten something? Where's the document that the streamer wrote to Dou Shi?" Although she didn't scream, her emotions were still revealed. Dou Shi saw all the changes in her expression. "Madam, what's wrong?" It was hot outside. Dou Shi held an umbrella for her. The woman came back to her senses and said embarrassedly, "I'm a little reluctant. It's rare to meet a famous scholar. Since Feng Ren was the idol that this body worshipped, it shouldn't be a problem to answer like this, right? Maybe there'll be a chance in the future." Dou Shi smiled and said, "Madam caught a cold and was very sick. You almost scared me. Now that you've recovered, I should prepare something to go to Qingxue Temple to fulfill my vow. Why don't you go back and rest first? Don't tire yourself out." "Qingxue Temple? Since it's to fulfill my vow, I should be there too. Only then will I show my sincerity." The time-traveling experience only lasted for 12 hours. She wanted to see more of the real ancient times. Why would she want to waste time in the mansion? Dou Shi said, "That's good too." Seeing the interaction between the two, many salted fish were relieved. The lucky emperor had some tricks up his sleeves. Dou Shi didn't expose him. But, was that the truth? Jiang Pengji rested her chin on her hand and looked at the screen. Her eyes were deep. At that moment, her private message beeped. "You Abba, don't worry." Jiang Pengji said, "What should I worry about?" "You Abba, aren't you worried that the so-called dream of 1,000 years will harm the people in the streaming room?" Jiang Pengji didn't even bother to lift her eyelids. She said, "Old chief, aren't you worried? The so-called system is the culprit who turned the Federation upside down and caused the 2,000 years of war. I naturally have a reason to worry that this thing will cause trouble again. You Abba, although that person gave you the god-slaying saber with the intention of using you to solve the defected heavenly brain, it was ultimately to clean up the problems left behind by history. The other party's standpoint is the same as yours. Naturally, he won't be a burden to you." In other words, what Jiang Pengji was worried about would not happen. Jiang Pengji glanced at him. "Old chief, you really know a lot of insider information." After a while, the system notification popped up. "Your good friend, your Abba, has gone offline." Jiang Pengji snorted and muttered, "Coward." When she returned to the Federation one day, she would capture all the insiders and interrogate them. When she turned her gaze back to the streaming room screen, she realized that Dou Shi and his wife had already arrived at Qingxue Temple. Qingxue Temple was a Taoist temple. Although it was an ancient building with a long history, it didn't have a lot of followers. It wasn't until a few years ago that a Zhenren came to Qingxue Temple to practice on his own that the Taoist temple began to flourish. Chapter 1424. Many believers came here to ask for divination. Since the divination was so accurate, it was hard for the incense to not be popular. Immortal Liru was over 70 years old, but to outsiders, he had white hair and a youthful complexion. He was hale and hearty, and his steps were steady. Madame Dou had visited Taoist temples during holidays, but those temples were more like tourist attractions. Many Taoist priests were also there, and they did not look like otherworldly masters at all. In contrast, the Qingxue temple was much quieter. The believers and Taoist priests who came and went were pious. She calmed down and followed Doshi into the Taoist temple. "What do you think of this place, madam?" The woman was slow to react. She smiled and said, "It's very good. It's not grand, but the atmosphere is very comfortable." After that, she looked around curiously, as if everything was new to her. Doshi was speechless. The two entered the main hall. The temple master, Immortal Liru, was also there. He was explaining the divination of a believer in a low voice. When Immortal Liru was done, Doshi stepped forward. After greeting each other, Doshi explained the purpose of his visit and asked about the requirements for the vow. Immortal Liru glanced at Madame Do. He frowned slightly at first, but then relaxed. "Your wife's complexion is excellent and her aura is strong. It seems that she has passed the hurdle and will recover in a few days." Immortal Liru summoned a Taoist boy and asked him to take Madame Do to burn incense elsewhere. The latter could not have asked for more and walked briskly. Hearing the sound of Immortal falling on the ground gradually fade away, Doshi's face suddenly darkened. Immortal Liru said, "According to the divination, your wife won't survive the cold. Now that the heavens have blessed her, she should be fine." "Immortal, this one is definitely not the real Zhuojing. He's not some mountain spirit or wild monster." Doshi said, "My wife was born in a poor and illiterate family. But this one is different. His words and actions are very different from my wife's." "Immortal, do you have a way to get rid of this demon?" Doshi did not care about the mountain spirit or wild monster. He just wanted his wife back. According to Immortal Liru's previous assertion, his wife would not leave this world for long. But he could not tolerate a stranger occupying her body. "Don't worry, Layman Do." Immortal Liru comforted Doshi. "This is your wife's fortune. It's not a bad thing." Doshi was surprised. "What do you mean?" "Now, this young householder is a lucky star," Perfected Liru said with a smile. "I hereby congratulate Householder Do and his wife for growing old together." Doshi was stunned. "Dao Master, do you mean, my wife will be back soon?" Adept Lu Ru said, "If I'm not wrong, that little lucky star can only stay here for 12 hours. In any case, he could be considered as half a savior. Don't try to crush him to death so easily." Doshi's heart, which had been hanging in suspense, finally calmed down. Not a mountain spirit, but a lucky star? He was glad that he didn't act impulsively. Otherwise, things would have really gone south. Naturally, Madame Do was unaware of the conversation between Doshi and enlightened Master Liru. She sent the Taoist boy away. Seeing that there was no one around, she instantly let loose her natural instincts. She wished she could kick away the wooden clogs. These things were really difficult to wear. "It smells so good," she tiptoed on one side of the courtyard wall. She could clearly smell the fragrance of flowers drifting in from outside the courtyard, but she couldn't see the scenery. Looking left and right, she saw that there was no one around. She took off the wooden clogs and climbed up the rockery. Indeed, there was a beautiful scenery outside the courtyard. These Taoist priests really know how to enjoy life. It's such a blessing to live here in retirement. It would be even better if I had a cell phone and Wi-Fi. As someone who couldn't live without a cell phone 24/7, if not for the novelty of transmigration, she really couldn't stand the time without one. In the distance, Doshi was speechless. She really had the temperament of a child. He waited for a while for the other party to climb down to her heart's content before calling out to her. Madame Do didn't know what to do, but when she heard Doshi say that the matter was settled and they could go home, she believed him. On the way back, Doshi saw that she was extremely curious about the market outside, so he found an excuse to take her for a stroll. Madame Do mumbled softly. "A good man who's willing to buy things for his wife. What a rare and endangered species." Doshi was indeed a very good person. No matter what small item she fancied, he would happily pay for it. Of course, she didn't buy anything expensive. Most of them were ornaments, sachets, or snacks from the stalls. In ancient times, the market was poor and there weren't many goods. Women only shopped for the atmosphere, and they got bored after a while. Doshi saw that she looked a little tired, so he offered to take a break at the tea house. "What are you thinking about, madam?" Doshi saw that she stirred the tea but didn't drink it, looking absent-minded. Indeed, the woman didn't drink tea. Tea in this era was a dark cuisine. All kinds of seasonings were used to boil it, and the taste was very strange. "I'm thinking about Feng Ren's declaration of war." Her mouth moved faster than her brain. When she realized what she had said, she hurriedly tried to salvage the situation. She silently held her vest tightly and looked pitiful. The salted fish in the live broadcast room was angry that she didn't fight for it. It wasn't easy for her to survive until now, but this lucky emperor actually blew up her own vest. Though she ignored the way the woman addressed Feng Ren, and his sharp ears heard the word declaration of war. His heart skipped a beat. He suddenly understood something and almost dropped the teacup. "I didn't say anything just now," though she looked at her. Although it was a familiar face, her expression was unusually unfamiliar. This person was more lively than his own daughter. Looking at her, little Lucky Star was really young. "What did Madam say just now?" Though she looked puzzled, as if he really didn't hear anything he shouldn't have. The woman coughed softly. "I didn't say anything just now." Though she accompanied her as they strolled to many places outside. The sun gradually darkened the horizon. After returning to the residence, Doshi asked the kitchen to prepare a rather sumptuous meal. The chef in the kitchen muttered in a low voice. "It's not the new year, could it be that something good happened?" Although Doshi was rich, he wasn't extravagant. As a son of a peasant family, his style was still very simple. Now, however, he was serving a distinguished guest. The kitchen staff were naturally surprised. Doshi saw that the woman's expression was as usual, and her dining etiquette was also good. He secretly thought to himself, Lucky Star's living conditions in the past must not be poor. Unbeknownst to him, the woman proudly posted a bullet screen in the live broadcast room. "There's still half an hour to 12 hours. I didn't blow up my vest, isn't I amazing?" The salted fish all gave her likes. "Amazing, amazing." Jiang Pengji was speechless. "Forget it, let's not expose her." Though she didn't mean to hurt anyone, so there shouldn't be too much to worry about. In fact, Jiang Pengji didn't have to worry about the woman. Dream of 1,000 Years was a welfare activity, so naturally, there were sound protective measures. Apart from the necessary prompts, once the participants were threatened, they would be sent back in advance. If the experiencer did anything that would destroy the bad guy, the experience would also be forcibly ended. Not everyone who participated in the activity was so unlucky to meet Feng Ren and Doshi, two shrewd people, right off the bat. Chapter 1425. After dinner, the woman found that the Dream of 1,000 Years activity had entered its last 20 minutes. She felt relieved and a little regretful at the same time. Her goal was to touch the streamer's hand. She didn't expect to be placed in Yangshan in Shenyang County, which was several days away from Xiangyang County in Fengyi County. Thinking of this, her loyal expression showed some regret. Though she saw it. "Would you like to accompany me for a walk in the courtyard?" Doshi asked for her opinion. Perhaps because there were only 20 minutes left, the woman was not as frightened as she was at the beginning. Instead, she responded with a smile. "Let's walk after dinner. I'm 99 years old, of course I have to go." The wooden clogs fell on the cobblestone path with a crisp and rhythmic sound. The woman didn't deliberately fall behind or beside Doshi. Instead, she overtook him by half a body's length. There was a small garden in the Do mansion, complete with rockery and flowers. The overall layout looked very elegant. Doshi couldn't help laughing when he saw that she couldn't even walk properly. He couldn't help but have some funny thoughts. "I'm Do from Yangshan, also known as Shanju Sanren. May I take the liberty to ask, what is the name of this girl who is more beautiful than a flower?" The woman's heart skipped a beat. She turned to look at Do Shi. Seeing his smiling eyes, she became more and more uncertain. At this time, the system considerately gave her a reminder. System, high warning. Don't say anything you shouldn't. If necessary, the system will silence you. In addition to this warning, the system also thoughtfully gave her other options. The woman chose one of them. She answered with a stiff smile, I'm already married. Where did you come from, lecher? Do Shi laughed and didn't continue to make things difficult for her. The two chatted for a while and went to the water pavilion near the garden. This water pavilion was where Do Shi read in the shade in the summer. On weekdays, servants would take care of it on time. One could see the pond when they opened the window. The water pavilion is built here. Won't we get bitten by mosquitoes in the summer? The woman murmured. She didn't see Do Shi turn around and take something from the treasure pavilion. When she looked away, she saw Do Shi holding a fushi zither in his arms. The woman didn't know much about zither, but she felt that ancient zither were antiques and definitely not bad. You want to play the zither? The woman asked Do Shi. Do Shi nodded and asked with a smile, do you want to play? A phoenix seeking a phoenix? The woman rolled her eyes and thought about it. She found that she didn't know any other ancient zither songs except for the phoenix seeking for a phoenix. Do Shi declined with a smile, this song, this husband is not very familiar with it. It's better not to embarrass myself in front of madam. The woman said, then play what you're good at. You can play anything. Even if he played blindly, she wouldn't be able to tell if it was good or bad. Since that's the case, your husband will embarrass himself. Do Shi said with a smile. Before he played, he gave him a gift. A look of surprise appeared in the woman's eyes. For me? Do Shi nodded, yes, it's for you. It was a palm-sized box. The carvings on the outside of the box were exquisite and delicate, and the box exuded a light and pleasant fragrance. The woman gently opened it and saw a beautiful piece of jade lying inside. Even though she didn't know much about jade, she was still mesmerized by it. So pretty, the woman said dryly. As a workaholic who had graduated from the National College entrance examination for many years, she felt for the first time that she was clumsy. She racked her brains but could not think of a suitable compliment. If it was her before and after the National College entrance examination, she would definitely be able to speak eloquently and not embarrass herself in front of the ancients. After Do Shi burned incense and washed his hands, he played a song. The woman could not tell whether it was good or bad, but she felt that the tune was very pleasant. She sat sideways next to the piano table and supported her chin with one hand. The sudden drowsiness made her head nod bit by bit. Countdown. 3, 2, 1. Dream of 1,000 years, activity has ended. Thank you for your participation and cooperation. Thank you. Oh, I slept so well. The cute girl lifted the quilt in a daze. Suddenly, something sharp poked her hand. She touched it casually and felt a cold box. She suddenly woke up and grabbed it. When she looked at it, she exclaimed, "Oh my God!" She sat up in shock. All the hair on her body stood on end. Her muddled mind instantly woke up, and the memories from before she went to sleep flooded her. This, isn't this? She looked at the thing in her hand in a daze. She carefully opened the box and found a beautiful piece of jade lying inside. Yes, it's for you. Do Shi's voice echoed in her mind. She slapped her cheeks and suddenly had the illusion that her identity had been exposed. She slid down the Simmons bed and ran to the computer desk. The computer screen was still on the Empress's live broadcast forum interface. She took a look at the forum and saw that the number of replies had skyrocketed to millions. There were so many messages, and she did not have time to read them one by one. After thinking about it, she sat on the computer chair and turned on the front camera of her phone. She held the box in her hand and took a selfie with a smile. Then, she used Photoshop to cover her face and the decorations in the room and uploaded the picture to the forum. Original poster: I am the lucky girl that you all envy and hate. Although it is a little regretful that I did not successfully touch the host's little hand, I also received a precious gift. Look, don't the box and the beautiful jade in my hand look super familiar? La la la, are you envious? She was afraid that others would not catch the main point, so she simply drew a red circle on the box in the photo to mark the main point. Many salted fish were eager to try the dream of 1,000 years activity, but there were also salted fish who were worried. What were they worried about? They were worried that the so-called transmigration was a lie and that they might not be able to return after transmigrating. What was the difference between this and murder? The original poster's post had not been updated, and many onlookers expressed their deep concern. 12 hours had passed, and they actually saw the original poster's reply on the post. Their first reaction was, very good, the original poster is still alive, and the transmigration activity should be real. Their second reaction was, F***ck. Envy, jealousy, and hate. They wished they could raise a torch and roast this fresh and juicy lucky girl. The news of the lucky girl's successful return successfully rushed to the top of Weibo, suppressing countless celebrities in the entertainment industry. Apart from the onlookers who admired the lucky girl's luck, the rest of the onlookers raised the torch of jealousy and burned it. At the same time, Doxi's wife gradually woke up and revealed an expression that Doxi was familiar with. Zongguang. Doxi's wife pinched her eyebrows and felt a little better. Madam, how do you feel? Doxi revealed a look of joy and excitedly grabbed the other party's hand. Only then did he realize that the gift he gave to little lucky girl had disappeared. He did not think too much about it and hurriedly called for a doctor to take his wife's pulse. The doctor was also surprised. A while ago, he was certain that she would not live for more than half a month, but now her pulse was strong and healthy, not at all like a dying patient. Doxi's wife told Doxi in private, I had a dream not long ago. What dream? Chapter 1426. The ancients were still in awe of gods and ghosts, and Doxi was no exception. Hearing his wife talk about this dream, he was even more convinced. He couldn't help but rejoice, Madam has the help of a lucky star. Doxi told his wife about what happened during the day. Madame Doxi was pleasantly surprised. In that case, we should set up a longevity tablet for this benefactor and worship him every day. Doxi nodded. There was something he didn't say. He felt that he was about to get lucky. Although little Lucky Star did not say everything, but according to the information he inadvertently revealed, Feng Ren's sudden visit was definitely not what he had said. Perhaps the Duke of Lanting really wanted to recruit and promote him. If that was the case, he would really be able to fulfill his ambitions and bring honor to his ancestors. After waiting anxiously for a few days, Feng Ren went to the mansion again. After the small talk, Feng Ren really asked him if he wanted to become an official. Doxi's heart raced, and he barely held back his excitement. He spoke of his ambition in a reserved manner, indirectly responding to his plan to become an official. Feng Ren smiled and stroked his beard. Duke Lanting has long admired Zongguang's talent and wants to recruit him. Are you willing to work for him? Doxi stood up and bowed. He said resolutely, I am willing to serve you faithfully. When he received Jiang Pengji's personal letter of conquest, his fingertips were still trembling. What did it mean to have joy after extreme misfortune? This was it. Previously, Doxi was still worried about his wife's illness. Now that his wife had recovered from her illness and had a bright future, it was simply too wonderful. While Doxi was packing his luggage and preparing to head to Xiangyang district to take up his post, Jiang Pengji's plans for the public toilet and breeding farm were also put on the agenda. She took into account the economic and road conditions of various places and circled 10 places to set up breeding farms. In comparison, the cost of inspecting public toilets was much lower, and the number was much larger. Jiang Pengji planned to build a public toilet in a crowded area. Not only did she have to choose the location, but she also had to pay attention to the shape of the toilet that blended in with the surrounding environment so that it wouldn't look too out of place. Of course, considering the current trend, Jiang Pengji was even stricter with the women's toilets. Not only did she have to ensure privacy when she went to the toilet, but she also had to prevent hooligans from intentionally offending her. Therefore, it was necessary to arrange for people to guard the women's toilets. Naturally, the maintenance of the public toilets also required people. This way, he could increase the number of jobs. Although this job was dirty, smelly, and tiring, it could earn enough money to support a family. Naturally, there was no need to worry that no one would want to do it. Jiang Pengji bit her pen and tried to point out the areas that needed attention in the old public toilet. To think that I, the commander of the Federation Army, have to worry about the problem of public toilets. When I was in the Federation, it was none of my business even if the public toilets of the department were blocked. I'm really regressing. Jiang Pengji held the pen in her mouth and grumbled. She hadn't been able to sleep well for the past few days because of the issue with the toilet and the farm. You manage the weather, the earth, and the people's daily needs. How is she a farm owner? She's clearly a full-time nanny. Jiang Pengji lay on the mat beside the table like a piece of streaky pork on a chopping board. She put her hands behind her head and opened the bamboo scroll on her face to block the sunlight. She propped one foot up and placed the other on the table. Her bare feet dangled in the air. The moment Qiguan Rang entered, he saw his lord's demeanor as if it had been eaten by a dog. His eyebrows twitched, but he didn't say anything in the end. Not to mention women, even men rarely disregarded etiquette like this. Greetings, my lord. Qiguan Rang bowed. Jiang Pengji blew at the bamboo scroll and realized that it wouldn't budge. She then lifted her hand and removed it. Wenjing? What's the matter? Jiang Pengji yawned and sat up lazily. She still looked weak and lethargic. Has my lord been very sleepy lately? Qiguan Rang asked tentatively. He didn't have a chance to feel Jiang Pengji's pulse, so he could only beat around the bush. It wasn't a good sign that his lord, who had always been lively and energetic, suddenly felt sleepy and liked to sleep. Jiang Pengji rested her chin on her hand and muttered, Wenjing, I haven't slept for 4 or 5 days. Do you think I'm sleepy? Although she didn't have dark circles under her eyes, it was true that she stayed up late. For so many days, she was either out on an inspection trip or staying indoors to plan and draw. She also had to rack her brains to think of problems that might occur after the implementation of the plan and come up with countermeasures in advance. When she was busy, it wasn't as easy for her as Qiguan Rang and the others. Qiguan Rang and the others were all ordinary people. Their physical endurance was limited. It was impossible for them to be busy day and night. Although it was said that working overtime was extremely tiring, it wasn't really tiring when the working hours were calculated. Feng Zhen and Yang Si could even get together and drink. Jiang Pengji was at a disadvantage. She was in good physical condition, so she didn't show any signs of exhaustion even if she stayed up late to fight. In addition, she often skipped work, which gave people the impression that she didn't do proper work. Before Qiguan Rang showed a distressed and disapproving look, Jiang Pengji asked him again, Wenjing, is there anything? Qiguan Rang presented a thick booklet to her. Jiang Pengji picked it up and glanced at it. This is Wenbin's handwriting. Is there any progress on his side? Han Yu's work for the past year was to sort out the old laws and compile new ones, such as the previous marriage law and the child protection law that he was busy with. As long as the war was not urgent, Jiang Pengji didn't plan to let Han Yu go to the battlefield again. It wasn't that Han Yu's military talent wasn't good. On the contrary, Han Yu almost killed Yang Si and made Jiang Pengji suffer a great loss. His talent was beyond doubt. However, Jiang Pengji felt that everyone had their own platform to show their talents. Compared to the battlefield, it was more suitable for Han Yu. So far, Jiang Pengji couldn't find a suitable legal talent other than Han Yu. Han Yu outshone the others. Of course, if Han Yu preferred the battlefield, Jiang Pengji wouldn't stop him. The battlefield was risky, but he could accumulate merits quickly. Qiguan Rang said, yes, but Wenbin is not in good spirits. He hasn't slept for several days. Let him rest first. Looking at the dark circles under Han Yu's eyes, Han Yu would die suddenly if he continued to practice immortality. Qiguan Rang didn't want anything to happen to Han Yu, so he coaxed him to go home to sleep. Since Jiang Pengji and Qiguan Rang had a showdown, Qiguan Rang had placed Han Yu and Wei Ci at the top of his heart. They were both his precious eggs. For the sake of his precious egg, he was willing to personally run an errand. Jiang Pengji carefully looked at the first-generation manuscript that Qiguan Rang handed to her. Her brows loosened and furrowed from time to time. She looked serious. "My lord, how is it?" Jiang Pengji said, "There are still some shortcomings. Many parts are a bit cumbersome. Laws are different from other things. The parts that should be simplified, and the parts that should be detailed. There is no room for lawbreakers to take advantage of. However, according to the standards of the first-generation manuscript, Wenbin didn't disappoint me. Wenzheng, go back and tell him to stay at home and recuperate. He will come back to see me in 3 to 5 days." Qiguan Rang said, "Yes." After Qiguan Rang left, Jiang Pengji went to the bookshelf and took out a brand new book. She called the maid to grind the ink. Jiang Pengji made a copy of Han Yu's manuscript. She planned to proofread, correct, and supplement the parts with the audience in the streaming room. He will die suddenly sooner or later. I've never been so hard-working in my previous life. Keep working. I'll be a slave for the rest of my life. Chapter 1427. Did you see that? This is called squandering money like water. Sometimes I feel like I'm more of a prodigal than Zhao. Jiang Pengji looked at the budget book presented by Su Ku. She was shocked and self-deprecating at the same time. The farm could at least achieve a balance of income and expenditure, but it was impossible for the public toilets. Not only was there no room for profit, but a large amount of money had to be spent on maintenance and renovation. The only benefit was probably an increase in employment and a stable supply of raw materials for fertilizer. Jiang Pengji sighed and covered her eyes with her hands to avoid looking at the account book on the table. If it wasn't for the friendly sponsorship of the Tao family, Jiang Pengji's funds would have been in trouble. Su Ku advised, "My lord, you should think on the bright side. If this is really good for farming and fertilizer, do you still have to worry about compensation in the future? If the fertilizer problem was solved, there would be a bumper harvest every year. The grain tax alone would reach a new high. Why would she feel distressed about this small expenditure?" Jiang Pengji rested her chin on her hand and said, "I like what Xiao Yu said. Time will prove that my squandering is meaningful." After spending most of the day dealing with official affairs, Jiang Pengji got up from the table and loosened her muscles in an inelegant manner. Perhaps it was because she hadn't been completely active for a long time. She was always lazy. She would go to the drill ground to find Fu Wang and the others to practice some skills. Jiang Pengji did a few stretching exercises and rubbed her sore neck. She heard the sound of footsteps approaching from outside. It's almost lunchtime. Is there anything else? Jiang Pengji was about to have lunch. Couldn't they let her rest? "My lord, Doshi has come to take office. The secretary is asking how to settle him." Jiang Pengji raised her eyebrows and put down her hand that was rubbing her neck. "Bring him to me. I'll settle him myself." Although Feng Ju and Feng Ren both recognized Doshi's talent, Jiang Pengji was strict with people. She still had to check on him personally. In the other room, Doshi was waiting for the result anxiously. He felt like Yang Shan, who was favored by the Jinlin branch. He was like a pig standing on the wind, waiting for the moment to take off. Doshi had tried his best to overestimate his future, but he still underestimated it. When others told him that Lu Shi, the feudal lord, had personally received him, Doshi was so stunned that he almost fell into a daze. Despite the tempestuous waves in his heart, Doshi's expression remained calm and composed. His every move seemed to have been measured with a ruler, and there was nothing wrong with it. Commoner Doshi greets the Duke of Lanting. Even in his old age, Doshi still remembered that kowtowing in the hall lasted his entire life. Jiang Pengji gazed deeply at Doshi below with her slightly indifferent eyes. She sized him up for a while before moving her eyes away. She helped Doshi up and asked, "You are Zongguang?" "It's just as old Mr. Feng said, he's a dragon among men." Doshi stood up and said humbly, "I'm just a commoner in the countryside. I've done nothing to deserve such a great honor. What's so difficult about making a contribution? True gold is not afraid of the red cauldron. Zongguang is talented and only lacks an opportunity to easily rise to the top." Jiang Pengji teased Doshi with a smile and said, "In my opinion, it's not that Zongguang can't bear the responsibility, it's that it doesn't suit Zongguang." Doshi panicked even more, and his heart was filled with apprehension. It was a good thing that the new boss thought highly of him, but it wasn't a good thing to have high expectations of him. If the expectations were too high and he failed to reach the other party's bottom line, he would be the unlucky one. However, Jiang Pengji had made it a dead end. Doshi couldn't accept it arrogantly, nor could he refuse it humbly. He was in a dilemma. Just as he was getting anxious, Jiang Pengji smiled and said to him, "What does Zongguang think of the position of Officer of the Code of Agriculture?" "Officer of the Code of Agriculture?" Doshi was shocked and hurriedly said, "I don't dare to occupy a high position in order to make a contribution. Please take back your order, Lord Lanting." Officer of the Code of Agriculture sounded like a farmer, but he was qualified to be in charge of agricultural production, civil affairs, and land rent. He had a lot of power. Doshi had been a commoner before, but he had become Officer of the Code of Agriculture after a short while. His authority was similar to that of a county chief. Wasn't this attracting hatred? Seeing that Doshi was about to break out in a sweat, Jiang Pengji laughed and said, "Don't be so nervous. Officer of the Code of Agriculture isn't a lucrative job for me. Since you're from a farming family, this position is naturally suitable for you. We can't let Han Mei and the others take on this position. It's not right." Li Yun was a general who led troops to war. After he came back, he not only had to train the troops, but he also had to manage the fields. It was too much of a waste of energy. Even if Li Yun's achievements in agriculture were not bad, he was not a professional after all. It was not right for him to continue taking on this position. Doshi stubbornly said, "I'm not worthy of this position. I dare not accept your order." If one's virtue did not match the position, there would be a calamity. It was a good thing that a pie fell from the sky, but if the pie was too big, it could crush someone to death. At that moment, salted fish in the streaming room reminded Jiang Pengji. "Zi Xiao Xiao, streamer, have pity on him. Don't continue to scare him. This is like a graduate applying for a job in the world's top 500. If he's not careful, he'll be pushed to the position of a department head. You're not afraid that he won't do well, but he'll be worried that he won't do well. Yi Wu Yanling, streamer, let him start from an inconspicuous position. If he's really capable, he'll rise sooner or later. If he's suddenly promoted to the position of officer of the Diannong, even if he's really capable, the people below him won't be convinced. This will be troublesome. Since you're so insistent, I won't force you." Jiang Pengji took in salted fish's opinion and took a step back. "I'll reserve the position of officer of the Diannong for you. When you make a contribution, you can take it at any time. Zongguang, don't tell me that you don't even have this little bit of confidence." Doshi could tell that Jiang Pengji really had high hopes for him. He said resolutely, "I'll do my best to repay Lord Lanting's kindness." Jiang Pengji was not a person who liked to procrastinate. Since Doshi was already in her camp, there was no trial period. She rolled up her sleeves and went to work directly. The fertility of the farmland had been declining due to the non-stop farming in the past few years. If she did not try to remedy it, the harvest in the next 2 years would be very poor. Time was precious. Doshi could take up his post as soon as he came. It would be best if he could produce results that satisfied her. Old Master Feng should have shown you the manuscript, right? What do you think? Doshi told the truth. If it can be written into a book, it'll be a classic in the farming field. Everyone will regard it as a standard. Jiang Pengji burst into laughter. It's just scribbles. How can it be worthy of what you're talking about? Though she was dumbfounded when he heard that. Even his smart brain did not work well. Lord Lanting's words meant. Could it be that the manuscript was written by her? Jiang Pengji clapped her hands. The person waiting outside the house carried all the manuscript and thoughts she had sorted out. Although she had some general knowledge about agriculture, it was just a trifle. At most, she could see further than Do Shi and see the big picture more comprehensively. Chapter 1428. These manuscripts should be of some use to you. Take all of them back for reference. Jiang Pengji said bluntly, there are more complete regulations for farming. I'll get someone to send you a copy when the time comes. There shouldn't be any mistakes if you follow it step by step. Zhongguang's main task is to formulate a detailed regulation on how to replenish the fertility of the farmland. It's best if it can be used next spring to guarantee a harvest the next year. When Do Shi heard that, he was both excited and forced a smile. This was a big task. If it was done well, he would be worthy of the title of cadet. If it was not done well, it would not be as simple as ruining his reputation. He would lose all standing and reputation. However, Do Shi was not a man who backed down when faced with a difficult problem. He took a deep breath and solemnly accepted this important task. The first batch of public toilets was built within the boundaries of Xiangyang district. Basically, there was one public toilet on each street. Every toilet was divided into 2 sections for men and women. Due to the lack of technology, although Xiangyang district had drainage pipes, there was no network management system specially used to deal with dirty excrement. If public toilets were to be built, they could only choose dry toilets. Someone would be sent to clean the manure tank regularly to ensure that the smell would not be too strong. This move won the support of many people. Although there were toilet buckets in their homes, it was not easy to deal with. They could not build toilets for every household. When they went out to work or do business, many people and traders could only find a secluded place to relieve themselves. It was fine for men. They could lift their pants and turn their backs to the crowd. Any corner of the wall could be a toilet, but it was inconvenient for women. From a certain perspective, this was one of the reasons that prevented women from leaving the shackles of their families. Although Jiang Pengji was strict with the public security and health management of Xiangyang district, there were always people who knowingly violated the law. It was better on the main streets where business was flourishing. People did not dare to act recklessly. However, it was bad in the remote corners. When the weather was hot, the stench was overwhelming. Sometimes when they went out, they would accidentally step on a pile of cow, sheep, pig, dog, or human waste. This was the situation in the big cities, not to mention the small places. Regarding this, the ordinary people were used to it. They had nothing to complain about. Unexpectedly, Jiang Pengji suddenly came up with such a move. The ordinary people naturally celebrated and beamed with joy. People were thick-skinned. Even illiterate people had a sense of shame. They also knew that exposing their private parts in the open was an eyesore. They had no choice in the past. It would be great if there were public toilets for them to solve their physiological problems. Most of the commoners were looking forward to it, but not everyone was in favor of this plan. There was no lack of contrarians in this world who felt good about themselves and would find fault with everything. Who doesn't have a bowl? Why did they have to make such a thing? It's really a waste of manpower and money. He was scolding Jiang Pengji for looking for trouble and for not knowing where to spend her money. What kind of public toilets are separated by gender? Most of the women don't go out at all. What's the point of doing this? Although the public toilet isn't an open field, it's not a house either. How can a woman take off her clothes as she pleases? If she's not careful, someone might see it. This was because the existence of women's toilets was meaningless. Some people were worried that women would be taken advantage of in public toilets. If a woman was offended in a public toilet, who would she look to for justice? When Jiang Pengji said that the female toilet would be strictly guarded to ensure the safety of the women, the group of people had something to say. It took so much manpower to manage and maintain a public building that was not profitable at all. It was really a waste of manpower and money. Jiang Pengji was speechless. The contrarians really couldn't be provoked. No matter what she did, they could find fault with it. No matter how the group of ancient, keyboard warriors, pointed at the country and spoke with vigor, Jiang Pengji still had to do what she had to do. She had a lot of things on her hands. Not only did she have to follow Hanyu to revise the child protection law several times, but she also had to make the law conform to morality and adapt to the current trend. She also had to guide Doshi from the side. The group of people traveled from south to north. Once she was busy, she forgot everything. When the public toilets were completed and put into use, the child protection law began to take shape, and Doshi figured out a simple plan to gain weight. More than a month passed by in a flash. The temperature was getting colder. It was late autumn. Jiang Pengji finally found a chance to take a breath and stop her busy steps. Of course, she didn't relax much. There was still a pile of official documents in the government office. When she was ready to face reality with a tragic heart, she found a figure who looked like a pine and bamboos sitting in the hall with his head bent over the table. Jiang Pengji rubbed her eyebrows and went forward to ask, "Zixiao, have you recovered from your illness?" Wei Ci heard the movement and raised his head to look at Jiang Pengji. His slightly pale lips curled into a warm smile. He stood up and bowed. "Greetings, my lord. Ci has recovered greatly." Jiang Pengji squeezed his hand. The temperature of his hand was much lower than normal. "You call this recovering greatly?" "It wasn't easy for me to grow that little bit of fat in the past. It's all gone after not seeing you for a while. Although government affairs are busy, we still have enough manpower. Why did a sick person like you jump out to join in the fun?" She sighed. "If you really want to recuperate, you should be rounder, right?" Jiang Pengji preferred slightly chubby men. It felt good to hold and touch them. However, Wei Ci belonged to the typical type of person who couldn't gain weight no matter how much she raised him. Wei Ci said, "To be able to do something within my ability for my lord, for me, this is more nourishing than any nourishing medicine." Things happened one after another outside. He saw it and felt anxious. How could he sit still? When the injuries on his body were almost healed, Wei Ci immediately returned to his post. He was a model worker. Jiang Pengji sat by the table and played with his big sleeve with one hand. "So, Zixiao, are you sure that you've recovered?" Wei Ci's gaze was somewhat puzzled, but he still nodded honestly. "Zixiao, do you still remember that I said that I would give you a gift when you've recovered?" The corners of Jiang Pengji's lips curled into a malicious smile. Wei Ci's heart was pounding. He had an ominous premonition. "I'm indeed almost recovered." Wei Ci could only think about it again and again. "My lord loves me so much. My family doesn't lack anything." Jiang Pengji used her index finger to touch his lips. She smiled and said, "Wrong, wrong. You really don't have the thing that I want to give you." Wei Ci was speechless. The ominous premonition was getting stronger. What should he do? Although he said so, Wei Ci waited for a long time uneasily, but he didn't receive the gift that Jiang Pengji was talking about. He was relieved and a little melancholic at the same time. Did my lord forget? Of course not. Jiang Pengji was simply too busy. It was nearing the end of the year. There would only be a lot of things waiting to be dealt with. How would she have the extra energy to think about love affairs? Anyway, Wei Ci's frog soup had been cooked for so many years. Whether it was earlier or later, the result would be the same. Fengzhen saw that Jiang Pengji could still smile even when she was so busy. He suddenly felt horrified. "My lord, have you encountered something good?" Jiang Pengji raised her hand and placed it on Fengzhen's shoulder. She smiled unrestrainedly. "Take a guess." Chapter 1429. "I can't guess it." Fengzhen helplessly brushed her hand away. He did not want Wei Xi to see him with his arm around his lord's shoulder. Who could withstand Wei Xi's ability to brew vinegar? Fortunately, Jiang Pengji's temperament was also a typical example of a wanton and unrestrained person, so she did not mind Feng Zhen's actions. In any case, it's not a good thing. Feng Zhen said honestly. Every time the Lord smiles so beautifully, someone is bound to be unlucky. His desire to live was very strong. He had just secretly insulted Jiang Pengji, and then he immediately flattered her. Jiang Pengji touched her face and muttered, "Does my smile look good?" Feng Zhen lied and said, "You look good." When Zixiao saw it, his legs went soft and he couldn't walk anymore. But who would be the unlucky one? His lord was really not a kind person. Since he was targeted by her, he could only pray for his own good luck. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, Jiang Pengji said with a smile. Even if I don't smile, his legs will go soft and he won't be able to walk. When Feng Zhen heard this, he suddenly felt like his stomach was cramping up. In the past, the Lord still knew how to cover up the fact that she had an affair with Wei Xi, but now, she was not afraid at all and was even narcissistic. If Feng Zhen knew about the existence of the streaming room, he would know that Jiang Pengji's action was called public display of affection, also known as public display of affection. "My lord, please take it easy." Feng Zhen laughed bitterly and said, "Even though anyone who isn't blind can see it clearly, it hasn't been made public. Everyone can still lie to themselves and turn a blind eye to it. If this really gets out, it won't be easy to clean up the mess." It was one thing for everyone to know, but it was another for Jiang Pengji to expose her relationship with Wei Xi and announce it to the public. The relationship between Feng Zhen and Jiang Pengji was not only that of a subject and a ruler, but also that of a good friend. He treated Wei Xi like a teacher and a friend. From Feng Zhen's point of view, he really didn't want the two of them to be harmed by external forces. Of course, feelings were a matter between two people, but it also depended on their status. Jiang Pengji and Wei Xi's identity and status meant that she could not openly push Wei Xi to the surface. This wasn't love, it was harm, and it was the embodiment of immaturity. Feng Zhen and the others were also very clear about their bottom line. They didn't care how they interacted in private, but on the surface, their relationship could only be that of a ruler and a subject. As a feudal lord, Jiang Pengji had a naturally powerful position. Nothing would happen to her. The one who would be heard in the end would only be Wei Xi. "I didn't make a big deal out of it, did I?" Jiang Pengji said with a smile, "I know what to do." Feng Zhen muttered, "That's hard to say." After all, feelings between a man and a woman can get to their heads. Otherwise, why would it be said that the land of tenderness was the grave of a hero? No matter how brave his lord was, didn't he still succumb to the beauty Wei Xi in the end? Jiang Pengji couldn't help but roll her eyes. She said sarcastically, "We've known each other for so many years. When have you ever seen me do something irrational? Instead of making a big fuss and losing Zixiao, it would be better to maintain the status quo, to live in the same quilt and die in the same grave." "My lord, what you mean by this?" Feng Zhen was very good at grasping the main point. He asked, "When did you set your eyes on Zixiao?" He had thought that it was bad enough that Wei Xi had set his eyes on the 12-year-old lord. He didn't expect the two of them to be double arrows. Jiang Pengji coughed lightly and dismissed him. "Why are you asking so clearly? Do you still want the young lord?" If it weren't for Jiang Pengji's strong style, who knew how many people would have been urging her to get married? Don't think that she didn't know that this group of people secretly yearned for the young lord. Feng Zhen couldn't help but cover his face secretly. "I do want him. Unfortunately, Zixiao is a man and can't bear the heavy responsibility of childbearing. Besides, the young lord shouldn't have come at this time." This was the disadvantage of being a lord. She had to do it herself after 10 months. She couldn't be like a man and throw the child to the woman after they had sex. That wasn't right. As Feng Zhen said this, he suddenly thought of something. His lord and Wei Xi had been together for so many years. Why hadn't there been any good news? His lord's body couldn't make it? Impossible. His lord was more violent than a bear in the wild. Chasing a tiger across a ravine was no joke. Then Wei Si's body couldn't make it? Feng Zhen thought of Wei Si's weak body. He suddenly felt his teeth hurt and his stomach hurt. It hurt everywhere. He had thought of everything, but he didn't think that his lord hadn't taken Wei Si at all. Wei Si was still a virgin. He couldn't be blamed for not thinking of it. It was purely because Jianghu was too familiar with him when they went to the brothel. She was even more familiar with prostitutes than he was. After confirming their gazes, there was no doubt that she was an experienced driver. Which experienced driver would guard a piece of meat that was already in his mouth and not bite it? After a bunch of reasoning, Feng Zhen could only tremble and accept the cruel answer that Wei Si's body couldn't make a woman pregnant. He knew his lord's temperament. When she was stubborn, even 10 bulls couldn't pull her back. Who had the ability to force her to have sex with a strange man for the sake of a child? Taking 10,000 steps back, even if his lord was willing to have sex with a second person, according to her standards, the person who was qualified to touch her bed couldn't be worse than Wei Si. Then the problem was, how many men in this world could be better than Wei Si? He handled both internal and external affairs at the same time. From big schemes to small trifles, there was nothing he couldn't handle. He was talented, had good looks, and had a good temperament. He could abandon his principles for his lord. With such high standards, how many men in this world could compete with him? Forget to mention, Wei Si kept his chastity to his lord. Even if he found someone with conditions comparable to Wei Si, he would probably have a bunch of beautiful wives and concubines. His children would run around everywhere. As he thought about it, Feng Zhen suddenly felt his heart ache. Jianghu didn't know what he was imagining. She asked in surprise, "Is your body unwell?" Feng Zhen said, "No. I suddenly remembered something. I'll take my leave first." Jianghu said, "Then go do what you need to do." Feng Zhen turned around and went to find a famous doctor. He packed everything up and sent it to Wei Si's manor. Coincidentally, Wei Si was still busy dealing with official documents. Feng Zhen went forward and snatched his pen, then dragged him to the bed and sat him down. Wei Si looked at Feng Zhen, then looked at the doctors behind him who were carrying medical boxes and waiting for him. He was dumbfounded the whole time. What happened? Feng Zhen asked the doctors to take Wei Si's pulse one by one. He didn't allow Wei Si to stop them. When the doctors finished taking his pulse, they all looked at Feng Zhen mysteriously. This time, it was Feng Zhen's turn to be dumbfounded. Wei Si frowned and sent the doctors away. He asked helplessly, "Zisher, what's wrong with you today?" "What Feng Zisher?" He might as well ask someone to come and go crazy. Feng Zhen said, "If it's not your problem, is it the Lord's problem?" If that was the case, this was even more serious than Wei Si's health problems. If the Lord couldn't give birth, it would be a dead end. Chapter 1430. Wei Si's heart trembled. He mistakenly thought that something was wrong with Jianghu and hurriedly asked, "What's wrong with the Lord?" Feng Zhen stammered, "I'm not sure, it's just a guess. The Lord, perhaps, can't give birth?" Upon hearing this, Wei Si sternly reprimanded, "Who's spreading this rumor? The Lord's body is fine. Her Majesty couldn't give birth, so how did the 2 children in her previous life come about? Did they pop out of a rock?" Feng Zhen lowered his voice and said, "It's not your problem, it's not the Lord's problem." Then why haven't we seen any traces of the young Lord after so many years? Even if they spent more time apart than together, the 2 of them had been adulterous for so many years, shouldn't they have gotten together at least once? The Lord is still pure. Upon hearing this, Wei Si's ears reddened. "Where did you hear these rumors?" Feng Zhen was shocked. He was really shocked this time. "You coveted the Lord when she was 12 years old. Now she's almost 22 years old, yet you 2 are still pure?" Feng Zhen thought that he had heard wrongly. This was even more ridiculous than a sow climbing a tree or a sago blossoming. Jianghu went to the brothel to drink wine with prostitutes. She was familiar with hugging people left and right, and words of love came out of her mouth. She had the skill that even the experienced prostitutes could not withstand, but she was actually a virgin? Wei Ci was embarrassed and annoyed. You're really indecent. Who said that a man and a woman had to roll in bed when they were in love? What kind of rubbish was Fengzhen's brain filled with? Faced with Wei Ci's criticism, Fengzhen could only chuckle. You're really a virgin, you don't know the beauty of the relationship between a man and a woman. Wei Ci's ears reddened even more, almost as if they were shoulder to shoulder with the setting sun. Fengzhen said meaningfully, Zixiao, you're older than the Lord by 6 years. In 2 years, you'll be of age. He had always thought that men over the age of 20 were no longer virgins. He didn't expect Wei Ci to break his bottom line again and again. Wei Ci wasn't in a good mood. He didn't need Fengzhen's reminder. He said, there's no rush to wait a few more years. The Lord's focus now should be on conquering the world, not on relationships. No matter what, we should wait until we have more than half of Zhongzhou in our hands before considering this matter. If he remembered correctly, the first time His Majesty became pregnant was not long after the two of them had their first time. Wei Ci could not possibly take the risk of one night of pleasure and impregnate the other party, which would hinder his hegemony over the world. It was better to cultivate his moral character. To Wei Ci, physical compatibility was indeed wonderful, but it was definitely not as good as spiritual understanding and support. He was reborn to help her ascend the throne, not to drag her down. No one could stop him, not even himself. If anyone dared to obstruct him, Wei Ci would not be lenient, including himself. Fengzhen was speechless. Zhongzhou? Zhongzhou is not a place that Dongqing or Nanqing can compare to. The Nie family of Zhongzhou is very tricky. Would he only consider having children after taking over half of Zhongzhou's territory? Who knew how many years later that would be? Wei Ci was old and weak, how could he still move? It's true that the Nie family's momentum is swift and violent. They've become the most powerful feudal power in Zhongzhou, but it's only temporary. As long as Nie Liang dies, the outside world can just stir things up a little and watch the internal strife of the Nie clan. Wei Ci revealed a rare gloomy expression. That year, a freak combination of factors allowed Nie Liang to escape from a dead end, but his body has long been damaged by the years and days of poisons. All these years, he hasn't properly recuperated. Instead, he stubbornly fought for the power of the Nie clan and led the Nie clan to fight for the world in Zhongzhou. He's digging his own grave. The Nie clan of Zhongzhou was full of talents, but Wei Ci had only taken a liking to 2 people in his 2 lives. One was the ghost genius Nie Liang, and the other was Sun Wen. It wasn't that the others were incapable, but they were too selfish. Even if they had the ability to rule the world, there was nothing to be afraid of. Nie Liang was holding on with his life on the line. Sooner or later, he wouldn't be able to hold on. Sun Wen had also been offended by the Nie clan and had long been lured to his side by Wei Ci. He wanted to see how the Nie clan, who was obsessed with internal strife, would court disaster. Fengzhen hesitated. Do you really remember that Zixiao's family and clansmen are all in Zhongzhou, serving the Nie clan? Wei Ci's elder brother, Wei Dan, was Nie Liang's close friend and right-hand man. So what? Wei Ci's eyes were extremely cold. He said, I know which is more important and which is more important. He didn't owe the Wei clan anything. He didn't owe them anything in his previous life, and he certainly didn't owe them anything in this life. If he had no choice but to fight with his elder brother because of their positions, he would be more ruthless and let the other party die a happy death. Was he heartless? In Wei Ci's opinion, this was the greatest respect and affection. Fengzhen could only shrug his shoulders. Since the problem he was worried about didn't exist, he didn't want to get involved. Wei Ci was still a very reliable person. Fengzhen didn't deliberately hide this move from Jianghu. She heard about it the next day and was instantly overjoyed. Zixia is really a clown. This move is simply too flashy. Is he suspecting that Zixiao isn't capable? Wei Ci was by Jiang Pengji's side. Hearing his lord's unbridled laughter, he suddenly felt tired. Zixier's suspicions aren't without reason. Let him be. But I know you can do it. If you can't, don't you still have me? Jiang Pengji wrapped her arms around Wei Ci's neck from behind. She smiled and whispered in his ear, speaking of which, he's already suspecting that you can't do it. As a man, isn't Zixiao tempted at all? Wei Ci's ears turned red. He pursed his lips and didn't speak. Did she think that he copied thousands of copies of the heart-calming incantation for nothing? Jiang Pengji saw that he didn't respond and laughed. But I'm tempted. Wei Ci was speechless. His lord. Could she not be so flirtatious? To prevent himself from getting burned, Wei Ci hurriedly found a lame excuse and left. Jiang Pengji whistled like a hooligan. She was in an unprecedentedly good mood. Who said that you can escape from the palm of my hand? Regardless of whether it was her enemy or her prey, no one could escape. This year's New Year's banquet was held as usual. Jiang Pengji gave everyone 7 days of annual leave in advance. Yes, that's right. She actually stopped writing 7 days in advance and gave everyone their annual leave. The more generous she was, the more everyone trembled with fear. Fengzhen was even more nervous, as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Annual leave. How many years had they been yearning for it? When they personally experienced the beauty of annual leave, they felt uncomfortable all over, as if they were missing something. This year was calm and peaceful. The development of the various provinces was on the right track. One by one, the shadows of war were lifted from the ground, revealing a scene that could only be seen in a prosperous and flourishing age. As the creator of everything, Jiang Pengji's sense of achievement and satisfaction was self-evident. The New Year's banquet was held as usual. She was in a good mood and gave out big red packets to all the little kids who came to pay their New Year's greetings. When these children grow up, the world will definitely be a different scene. After all, Lu Shi was an ordinary person. It was already a long life for this body to live for 70 or 80 years. Jiang Pengji could only entrust the future to the group of children in front of her, who were full of vigor and hope. Qiguan Rang glanced at Wei Ci and sneered. We still lack a young lord. Without a young lord, no matter how many people there were in the new generation, it would be a waste. If the hard work of the previous generation could not be passed on to the next generation, wouldn't it be a waste of effort for others? Jiang Pengji was a little tipsy. There will be. She only hoped. Chapter 1431. After the New Year's banquet, everyone went back to the manor to stay up. According to previous year's practice, Jiang Pengji would either go back to sleep alone or stay up with Lu Zhao. This year was slightly different. Lu Shi and Gu Zhen were both there. As their daughter, she should accompany them. However, Jiang Pengji and Lu Shi had already laid their cards on the table. She did not want to face Lu Shi on such a beautiful day and continue to put on a fake show of filial piety. She simply said that she was not feeling well and left. Gu Zhen frowned and asked, "Where is Lanting not feeling well? Did you call the doctor to take a look?" The servant did not know and could only answer vaguely. Lu Shi, who was sitting at the head of the table, raised his eyebrows slightly and said calmly, "Lanting's status is different from the past. Since she is not feeling well, let her rest." Staying up for the new year was just a dispensable formality. He could not disturb Jiang Pengji's recuperation because of this matter. Seeing that Lu Shi had spoken, Gu Zhen could only swallow her words in embarrassment. Fortunately, my sister did not come. If she came, I don't know how ugly this scene would be. Lu Zhao was dressed in exquisite and luxurious clothes. Since he got married, he looked much more mature, but he still had the appearance of a fair and tender rich man of leisure. No matter who saw his appearance, they would always say that he was gentle and harmless. Why are you saying this? If others hear it, it will be embarrassing for no reason. Lu Zhao's wife still looked a little immature. Her every move was steady and polite. Hearing her husband's private murmur, she reminded him in a light tone. The two of them had been married for some time. Lu Zhao was gentle and accommodating, so the couple got along well. I sympathize with my two cousins. It was supposed to be a happy day, but it made the whole family unhappy. Lu Zhao glanced at his two cousins with the corner of his eye and sighed in his heart. Meng Heng and Nia Sun were also unlucky. They should have stayed at home with their wives and children to stay up for the new year. They did not expect Gu Zhen to have a sudden impulse. She hoped that the two of them could bring their families to accompany her. To put it nicely, she wanted to enjoy the happiness of a family. Could they refuse? They could not. Although Lu Zhao was a complete rich man of leisure, he was not stupid. He could see clearly in the dark. From his point of view, his two sons and Gu Zhen did not have feelings for each other. She would only push them away by being so forceful. Was this a mother who was eager to make up for her two sons? Lu Zhao snickered in his heart. His stepmother in name, but his aunt in reality, was definitely not that sentimental. Lu Shi, who had raised him for 12 years, abandoned him just like that. He turned around and chose the current Jianghu. In that case, how much weight did her eldest son, whom she had almost no contact with, and her youngest son, who had been missing for more than 20 years, weigh in Gu Zhen's heart? His eagerness to mend their relationship was more like trying to cover it up. She used her mother's naturally powerful identity to force her son to obey her, and then satisfy the guilt in her heart. Lu Zhao seemed gentle and harmless, but in his heart, he was not stingy with using the darkest thoughts to judge others. The whole family happily gathered together to celebrate the new year. That was the joy of a family. The group of people looked at each other, speechless. This was called mutual harm. On New Year's Eve that year, Meng Heng and Nia Sun's families had a terrible time. In the end, they had to use their children as an excuse to leave early. On Jiang Pengji's side, it was a completely different scene. Speaking of which, this is the first time I'm staying up alone with Zixiao on New Year's Eve. Jiang Pengji, who was unwell, refused to leave Wei Si's house at that moment. Looking at her lively appearance, she did not look unwell at all. Wei Si did not answer. He raised his hand and pushed the preserved fruit that she liked to eat in front of her. The corners of his lips curled into a faint smile. By the way, have you opened the gift that I gave to Zixiao? Wei Si said, I haven't opened it yet. Jiang Pengji rested her chin on her hand and said, then open it now and take a look. Wei Si could not help but laugh. How can you open a gift in front of the host? I'm being impolite. Jiang Pengji winked at him. Her eyes were deep and bright under the candlelight. According to our relationship, this little bit of impoliteness is more like fun. Wei Si could not dissuade her, so he could only take out a square red box from his sleeve. The box was wrapped in a layer of unknown material. The outer skin felt soft and delicate. Even though Wei Si was knowledgeable, he could not recognize the fur of an animal. Under Jiang Pengji's burning gaze, he gently opened it. Under the candlelight, 2 spots of dazzling white light were reflected. It was extremely dazzling and beautiful. Is this a ring? Wei Si fixed his eyes on it and realized that the white light came from the jewels inlaid on the surface of the ring. As far as he knew, this shining thing was the King Kong that was spread to the central plains from a faraway country in the west. I heard that the hardness of gold is rare in the world. Even steel and bronze cannot be damaged. The surface of this object is smooth, and the arrangement of the cross-sections seems to be regular. It doesn't look like it was formed naturally. Does my lord know who made this object? He actually has the ability to make it look like this. Jiang Pengji said, a pair of diamond rings, just like you and me. She could not give Wei Si a status, let alone announce it to the world. For Wei Si, who was deeply educated in the ancient orthodox way, this was a pity. If he were to ask himself honestly, He reckoned that Wei Ci had not thought of this in his previous life. Now that he realized it, he naturally had to do something about it. Diamond rings? Wei Ci took out the 2 rings doubtfully and realized that the 2 rings were of different sizes. I secretly measured the thickness of your fingers to customize it, Jiang Pengji said. Shall I help you put it on? She was grateful to the old chief for buying it on her behalf. Otherwise, Jiang Pengji could only find a goldsmith in this world to make a pair. Wei Ci said reservedly, Thank you for your trouble, my lord. Jiang Pengji put it on for him. She reached out her hand in satisfaction and gestured for him to put the lady's ring on her too. Pure gold was soft and easily deformed after wearing it for a long time. Diamond rings did not have this concern. Regarding this, the old chief even mocked her. Because in Jiang Pengji's era, diamonds were indeed a very cheap raw material for jewelry. It was useless even if they were hard. However, Jiang Pengji was not after the value of the diamond itself. She was after the meaning that people gave diamonds. In Salted Fish's dimension, one had to buy a diamond ring to get married. Jiang Pengji naturally followed the crowd. This object is hard and won't deform even if you wear it for a long time. It will never change. Wei Ci then realized that something was wrong. He only felt his heart was in a mess and his face turned red. Jiang Pengji reminded him, Zixiao, take a look. There's another thing in the box. Wei Ci shyly took out the thing in the box. What is this? The object was squarish, soft, and cold. He pressed his fingers together and realized that it was a 2-layer structure. There was a circle of circular objects in the middle. He was puzzled. He did not know when his lord had gone around to his back. She breathed into his ear and her fair and delicate hands slid down his neck and collarbone like agile snakes. This posture scared Wei Ci so much that his whole body froze. He did not dare to move. Chapter 1432. Every minute is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. How many minutes have you wasted? Jiang Pengji's hand slid down the front of his neatly arranged shirt. It felt extremely delicate and warm. Wei Ci's heart skipped a beat. He felt the temperature of his skin soar, and his hair stood on end. Zixiao's reaction. Do you not like me? It was clearly a complaint, but when she said it, it sounded like a mocking smile. Wei Ci wished he could find a hole to hide in and never come out again. Jiang Pengji's lips slid across his neck. It was so hot that he wanted to jump up. My lord, Wei Ci was somewhat incoherent. A scene from his previous life suddenly appeared in his mind. Although his majesty and his lord's attitudes were not quite the same, the undeniable stance was exactly the same. Tonight, will you obey me or not? I dare not disobey. Jiang Pengji leaned on his neck and teased him with a smile. Although I have no experience in matters between men and women, I know a thing or two and have some insights. Zixiao had a son and a daughter in his previous life. Could it be that he was still an inexperienced child? Such a scene, could it be that, you have very little experience? Wei Ci's face turned red. It was not because he was shy, but because he could not be tough in front of his lord. My lord, please don't tease me. After Wei Ci finished speaking, his entire body was as red as a cooked prawn. His following words were inaudible. If Jiang Pengji did not have extraordinary hearing, she would have missed it. You should also take pity on me. It's not a good feeling to take a cold bath on New Year's Eve. Jiang Pengji smiled and said, since it's uncomfortable, why not let nature take its course? Wei Ci coughed softly and prepared to get up with great self-control. In his previous life, he would not have dared to do so. From a certain point of view, was this considered being arrogant because he was favored? Jiang Pengji would not let him have his way. She held his neck with one hand, turned over, and pressed his head down. Half of her body leaned on him. He could not break free even if he wanted to, so he might as well lie down and be a salted fish. Zixiao. She leaned over and whispered in his ear, I heard that a husband and wife can use sheep intestines and fish bladder as a contraceptive, but it's not safe and clean. I'm trying to empathize with your filial piety, so I specially found another substitute. This is much better than sheep intestines and fish bladder. It's safe and effective. Wei Ci was in a daze. He suddenly understood what the square-shaped thing in his hand was. He wanted to throw them away as if they were scalding hot, but Jiang Pengji was faster and held his fingers instead. Jiang Pengji asked him proudly, "Now you have no reason to object, right?" While Wei Ci was embarrassed, his breathing became heavy. He asked Jiang Pengji in a slightly hoarse voice, "What does my lord intend to do?" Jiang Pengji said, "Yin and yang are in harmony. Let nature take its course." Wei Ci said awkwardly, "I dare not offend you, my lord, nor dare to overstep my authority." It was Jiang Pengji's turn to be dumbfounded. She laughed involuntarily and said, "So Zixiao likes women of lower status?" Upon hearing this, Wei Ci's jade-like face turned pale, but his breathing became heavier. It wasn't that he liked those below him. It was obvious that he didn't dare to offend those above him. For Jiang Pengji, she was both his lord and her majesty. No matter what, he did not dare to offend or overstep his boundaries, even in bed. After a while, Jiang Pengji heard Wei Ci ask her in a voice as soft as a mosquito. "That thing. How do I use it?" Jiang Pengji couldn't help it anymore. She smiled as she carried Wei Ci in her arms and walked into the inner room. "Zixiao, do you know? I'm so happy with your hesitant look. I can't wait to dissect you and swallow you into my stomach." Wei Ci was speechless. As a man, there shouldn't be anything wrong with that, right? He felt that it was no different from his previous life. The only difference was that in his previous life, he was directly pressed on the floor. In this life, he could at least sleep on the bed. "Zixiao, what are you thinking about at this time?" Jiang Pengji couldn't wait to let go of his clothes. Her right hand slid to his waist and randomly touched the belt. She gently pulled and untied it. Wei Ci blinked and suddenly said, "If my lord is a man, this scene seems to be more reasonable." Jiang Pengji smiled and echoed, "No matter if it's a man or a woman, you can't turn the tables." After saying that, she threw the belt out of the quilt. Without the belt to bind him, it was very easy to untie his clothes. Under the flickering candlelight, she threw the clothes one by one out of the bed. Seeing that Wei Ci was about to become an egg with its shell peeled, Jiang Pengji herself was still. No, she was also missing 2 pieces of clothes. The lapel of her inner garment was loosened, revealing a light yellow lotus undergarment. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Wei Ci was speechless. He quietly retracted his hand, but he was caught midway. "Wei Zixiao, didn't you say not to offend or overstep your boundaries?" Wei Ci said, "Although I dare not overstep my boundaries as a ruler, men and women have different responsibilities in bed. I'm just doing my duty, that's all." After saying that, Jiang Pengji lifted the quilt and covered the 2 of them. Without the illumination of the candlelight, their vision was pitch black. Their other senses became more acute. Their breaths mingled, and the temperature of the air rose rapidly. Jiang Pengji fumbled to untie Wei Ci's hair crown and jade hairpin, letting his long hair fall like a waterfall. She kissed him from his eyebrows to his eyes, all the way to his lips. Their lips touched, and the atmosphere that was originally as warm as the spring rain immediately became as hot as the scorching sun in summer. Wei Ci was not stiff and did nothing. He took the initiative to wrap his arms around her neck and shoulders. He used his fingertips to tease the string of the undergarment and untied it. Jiang Pengji bit his lower lip in a punitive manner and teased him with a smile, "A gentleman?" Wei Ci said helplessly, "I'm also a man, but a man doesn't equal to a gentleman. Moreover, how can I restrain myself when my true love is in my arms?" Under such circumstances, it was really difficult for him to ask him to be like Lu Xiaohui. If his lord knew her place, he could still tolerate it. He really couldn't help but light a fire everywhere. I love how you say one thing but mean another. Jiang Pengji smiled. Now that we're being honest, I find you even more pitiful and adorable. They were originally people with feelings. A little provocation would cause dry firewood and blazing fire. Moreover, the two of them were already in a state of being honest with each other. Jiang Pengji lingered on his neck in a punitive manner. Wei Si could only force himself to stay awake. My lord. It's not good if someone sees traces of us tomorrow. Jiang Pengji bit his collarbone with her tiger teeth. She was neither gentle nor forceful, and the strength of her provocation made Wei Si gasp slightly. Who said that you can meet people tomorrow? Wei Si was speechless. We have all the time in the world. Jiang Pengji smiled. Why do you think I gave you this annual leave so readily? Wei Si was speechless. Jiang Pengji's hand slid down his waist. That piece of skin was extremely sensitive. He never knew that a person's body temperature could be so terrifyingly high. It seemed that he was scorched by the temperature of Jiang Pengji's palm. His whole body trembled, and his reddened eyes emitted misty water vapor. My lord, are you in pain? Both of their bodies stiffened for a moment. Jiang Pengji stroked his face with one hand and sealed it with a kiss. Chapter 1433. The frog soup that had been cooking for 10 years was finally ready. Jiang Pengji naturally would not let Wei Si go easily. Wei Si was also a young man. He looked slender and weak, but he was a man after all. Naturally, his situation was not bad. The two of them fooled around for the whole night. It was not until the sky turned white that the activity in the bedroom gradually stopped. It's day or rest. I want to sleep until I wake up naturally. Don't wake me up. Jiang Pengji hugged Wei Si's neck with both hands and yawned slightly sleepily. 2 drops of physiological tears squeezed out from the corners of her eyes. Why don't I ask someone to prepare hot water for a bath? Jiang Pengji muttered, we'll talk about it when I wake up. Sleep first. Like an octopus, she confined him in her arms. She closed her eyes and rested her head on his shoulder, finding a comfortable position. Wei Si tilted his head slightly. With the faint morning light that penetrated through the paper window, he could barely see her face clearly. When he saw that her lips were slightly red and swollen, her shoulders that were exposed outside the brocade quilt were dotted with hickeys and finger marks. He suddenly blushed. Wei Si raised his hand and pulled up the brocade quilt to cover the traces that would provoke wild and fanciful thoughts. They slept facing each other and soon fell asleep. When Jiang Pengji woke up, it was almost 1:45 in the afternoon. Wei Si was still sound asleep. Jiang Pengji did not wake him. She reached out and grabbed the clothes that were scattered beside the bed and casually draped them over her shoulders. Perhaps because of the loud noise, Wei Si woke up not long after. He saw the back of Jiang Pengji sitting beside the bed and dressing. Aren't you going to sleep a little longer? Jiang Pengji asked. Wei Si coughed and said, I should ask someone to prepare something. If the Lord goes out like this, I'm afraid the servants in the residence will know. He was not a person who liked to treat himself harshly. Not only was there a bathtub in the residence, but there was also a specialized bathroom. To put it bluntly, it was a relatively large hot spring pool. In winter, one could soak in the hot spring while drinking a few drinks and looking at the scenery of the courtyard outside the window. It was comfortable and enjoyable. Jiang Pengji lay lazily beside the bathtub with her eyes half closed. The steam made her skin fair and rosy. It made one's blood boil. Wei Si wanted to wash up in the bathtub behind the screen. He had just moved half a step when she opened her eyes. There was a hint of threat in her eyes. Seeing that Wei Si had stopped, Jiang Pengji closed her eyes lazily and muttered, My hair is wet, it's uncomfortable. After a while, she realized that Wei Si had brought a wooden basin filled with clean hot water. He scooped up her long hair from the water. Jiang Pengji would trim her hair regularly, but her hair was still very long. It took some time and effort to wash it. When she woke up in a daze, she found herself leaning on Wei Si's knee. Her long hair was washed clean, and a pair of slender hands was carefully wiping her damp hair with a dry cloth. Seeing that she had woken up, Wei Si coiled up her long hair and fixed it with a hairpin. Jiang Pengji smiled as she extended her hand and slid it from his shoulder to his neck. Her fingertips hooked onto his Adam's apple. "You've already washed my hair. Why don't you pack my bath too? This shouldn't be considered overstepping my boundaries, right?" Wei Si. By the time the two of them were done fooling around, an hour had already passed. Jiang Pengji took the clothes off the hanger and compared them. She realized that the clothes were made according to her body shape. Zixiao is really a classic example of one who says one thing but means another. Jiang Pengji leaned on the screen and peeked at Wei Si putting on the clothes one by one. Her gaze was filled with undisguised admiration. "What's wrong with Si? How can there be undergarments suitable for me in your residence? There are no women in your residence. If they weren't prepared for me, were they prepared for yourself?" Jiang Pengji smiled and squinted her eyes. "If this isn't one thing, then what is? Si is also a man. How can I not be moved by a woman I admire?" Wei Si was silent for a while before he spoke. "Moreover, my lord often stays in the residence. I have to prepare a few sets of clothes in case of emergencies. If I can make my lord smile like this, then my preparations won't be in vain." Jiang Pengji complained, "I keep feeling that Zixiao has unlocked an incredible seal. He was much bolder than before. He didn't look so restrained. Was he ready to let go of himself?" It turned out that only Jiang Pengji could let go of herself. Wei Si was still the same Wei Si. A thick layer of snow hung on the short pine tree in the courtyard. Jiang Pengji sat by the window. There was a fire in the stove next to her, so she didn't feel cold. Wei Si asked the kitchen to prepare a sumptuous meal and warm wine. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Jiang Pengji's eyes were half closed. She folded her hands behind her head. Her black hair spread out like a waterfall. "I haven't been so free in a long time. Without official documents and worldly matters, I'm not used to it." "How did Zixiao spend his time before he became an official?" Jiang Pengji asked. "If he had nothing to do, it would be boring to sit around. Don't you think so?" Wei Si said, "Tea, wine, music, chess, calligraphy, and painting can kill time. Or I can go out to visit friends and attend banquets." Jiang Pengji said, "It sounds quite rich. I don't think I've heard Zixiao play the zither." Wei Si took a zither and burned some incense to clean his hands. He sat upright and said, "What would you like to hear, my lord? You can even play some songs?" Jiang Pengji asked with interest. "How about a phoenix looking for a phoenix?" Wei Si's cheeks were slightly red, but he did not object. The music was lingering, charming, and refreshing. Even if Jiang Pengji did not understand music, she could feel the burning emotions conveyed by the music. "There's a beauty that I can't forget when I see her. Not seeing her for a day, I go crazy thinking about her. If there's such a beauty in the world, she must look like Zixiao." Jiang Pengji did not know how to play the zither, but she had a photographic memory and could recite. Not only could she recite, but she also knew how to flirt with Wei Si. Wei Si could not help but laugh. He chose a few ancient songs with fresh and lively rhythms. Jiang Pengji squinted her eyes for a while and suddenly remembered what was missing. She had forgotten to turn on the streaming room today. "I hope there isn't an explosion over there," she muttered with a smile and casually turned on the streaming room. "There isn't an explosion? That's impossible." Jiang Pengji skipped work. Various popular platforms were paralyzed again. The programmers sacrificed their bosses and colleagues to heaven one after another, but they still could not save the servers that had crashed. It was said that many programmers had secretly begun to worship Jiang Pengji. They did not ask for anything else, they only hoped that she would diligently and earnestly stream every day. Even if she had to stop streaming for a few days, she would inform them in advance. They really could not take it if she did it every few days. 5 million salted fish flooded in quickly. In a second, there was no space left. All kinds of bullet screens flooded towards Jianghu. Through the bullet screens, Jianghu could also feel the salted fish's worry, fear, and pitiful emotions. Until a certain salted fish found something fishy. Yuzitong, streamer, your neck. Was it bitten by a bug? She bit her handkerchief and cried. Tell me, this isn't a hickey, right? Jianghu took out a bronze mirror and looked at it. She raised her eyebrows slightly, but she did not hide it. They were all adults. Straightforward people did not resort to insinuations. Chapter 1434. Lo Siji Lianmeng, look at the host, you look so full. I have an ominous feeling, Li Zi Luo Luo. I find that the streamer's current look is very similar to the lazy look of my cat master after eating and drinking. Liang Feng Qinhuan, I'm so envious that the streamer has a bound BGM. Zi Zhao's hands look so good when he plays the zither. Wandering Feather Shang, let me tell you guys a piece of unfortunate news. When I zoomed in on the screenshot just now, Samiran also had a strawberry on her neck. Han Yen Ningmeng, host, be honest. Did you bully Zixiao QAQ? Jiang Pengji waited for them to finish chattering and leisurely added another blow. Host V, what else? There was naturally a reason why he started the live broadcast so late today. The group of salted fishes suffered critical damage. Heartache, falling out of love twice in one day. The goddess that he admired and the Prince Charming that he liked had an affair. The salted fishes turned their grief and indignation into motivation, and a huge amount of resentment surged through the network, instantly crashing the servers that had just stabilized with great difficulty. Programmer Ape, the coder Ape and the boss, who had been sacrificed to the heavens, died with everlasting regret. Jiang Pengji was about to mock him mercilessly when her private chat rang. The system notified her that she had not received an email. What did the old general send her this time? Jiang Pengji felt that she was playing the traveling frog version of the old chief because he would bring her local specialties from different places every few days. Of course, she didn't dare to let the other party know about this. Otherwise, who would buy for her in the future? This ancestor had to be worshipped. She went to the Honeycomb Express storage cabinet and found some strange medicines with strange names inside. Your Abba, I've been to a new place for the past 2 days. I'm safe now. Don't worry. I've collected some local specialties that are suitable for you. Jiang Xiaojiu, the child beside you is still young. No matter what, you are still an adult. Be more considerate. Jiang Pengji was silent for a while and asked, what are local specialties for? Your Abba, it nourishes yin and the kidneys, nourishes and strengthens yang. Jiang Pengji asked, do I need that? Your Abba, your underage boyfriend needs it. I don't trust you anymore, you beast of a man. If I don't make up for it, what if you squeeze me dry when you're in the mood one day? After all, he's just an ordinary person. What about you? Army commander? Jiang Pengji was speechless. Asterisk asterisk, asterisk asterisk she had already explained that Zixiao was an adult. Your friend, your father, is online. Jiang Pengji looked at the profile picture with the darkened name and almost exploded. Did she look like a beast who did not know how to control herself? At this moment, salted fish in the live stream room seemed to be sending her red bean rice emojis. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Don't use a joke that I don't understand. According to Jiang Pengji's understanding of the group of salted fish, there must be a meaning to this joke. Although there was no wedding and no announcement, there was a ring, a vows, and a honeymoon. It was rare for Jiang Pengji to be muddle-headed. She used the excuse of patrolling everywhere as an excuse to drag Wei Ci out of the house for a stroll and sightseeing. Leave on the spur of the moment, and return to the fullest. In the blink of an eye, it was the 7th day of the Lunar New Year. The markets resumed their normal operations. Jianghu's leisurely time had come to an end. From the first day of the Lunar New Year to the 7th day of the Lunar New Year, Qiguan Rang and the others were either visiting their relatives and friends or attending banquets. Almost no one noticed that their lord had disconnected. No, he should say that he knew, but he pretended not to know. On the first day of work, Feng Zhen leaned over to Wei Si's side and said, "You've worked hard." Wei Si was stunned and asked in confusion, "What?" Feng Zhen teased, "If I didn't have the courage to be filial and sacrifice myself to feed the tiger, how could I have such a long holiday? I'm so tired that my bones are stiff." Wei Si almost lost his temper. Feng Zhen hurriedly pressed down on his shoulder and laughed. "If you don't want people to know, why don't you cover your neck?" Wei Si gritted his teeth and said, "It's really the nature of a prodigal son." As he spoke, he couldn't help but tighten his clothes. Little did he know that there were no marks on his neck. Feng Zhen was just bluffing. Moreover, so what if there were marks on a man's body? At most, he would say that he was a romantic. However, Wei Si was serious and couldn't help but tease him. He didn't know why the Lord liked such a dull and boring man so much. Women's thoughts were indeed hard to understand. As they spoke, Qiguan Rang walked over quietly like a cat. "The Lord has summoned us urgently." Feng Zhen and Wei Si's expressions turned solemn. They hurriedly got up, tidied their clothes, and rushed to the meeting hall. "What happened?" Wei Si asked casually. Qiguan Rang said expressionlessly, "The 4 factions of Nanman have been annihilated." Wei Si stopped in his tracks and almost lost his footing. He instinctively grabbed Qiguan Rang's arm. "What?" Qiguan Rang repeated, "There was an urgent secret letter just now. The Nanxing Alliance army defeated the 4 factions of Nanman. The army marched straight into the heart of the 4 factions of Nanman and captured more than 1 million captives. According to the letter, the Nanxing Alliance army discussed and decided to annihilate the entire tribe. Regardless of gender or age, not a single person was left alive. The Nanxing Alliance army is really ruthless. It took them several days to kill all the barbarians." Wei Si felt a chill run down his spine. He said in a hoarse voice, "Nanxing, how could they make such a stupid move?" According to his calculations, there were still many years before Shui used up all his resources to annihilate the 4 factions of Nanman in his previous life. In his previous life, he massacred more than 638,000 people from the 4 factions of Nanman. Regardless of whether they were men, women, the elderly, children, or infants waiting to be fed, almost no one survived. In this life, it was even more tragic. There were more than 1 million of them. Was the Nanxing Alliance army crazy? The 4 factions of Nanman had extraordinary combat power. There were more than 1 million of them. How could they let the Alliance army win so easily? Qiguan Rang said, "The heavens did not grant them their wish." An extremely terrifying epidemic broke out in the territory of Nanman. There were countless deaths and injuries. There was not even 1/10 of the young fighting power left. Whether it was Qiguan Rang or Wei Si, they did not think that this epidemic was deliberately planned by someone. The strong bodies of the Nanman tribesmen could not withstand the torment of the epidemic. At first, they could still hold on, but as time went on, there were countless deaths and injuries. It was said that at its worst, more than 10,000 young men died in a day. Wei Si asked, "Epidemic? What about the Alliance army?" When the 2 armies fought, the 4 factions of Nanman suffered. There was no reason for the Alliance army to stay out of it. The Alliance army also suffered casualties, but the situation was much better than the 4 factions of Nanman. Qiguan Rang said, "The 4 factions of Nanman were filled with miasma and the temperature was hot and humid. It was not conducive to recuperation, so the epidemic was naturally more serious. At least the Alliance army had medicinal herbs and military doctors. The illness could be controlled." Wei Si was so shocked that his mind went blank. It was as if he had been pulled back to the scene of his previous life. More than 638,000 people died in one place. Some were buried alive, and some were beheaded. It was as if the entire sky was dyed red by their blood. People were not plants, and their hearts were not made of stone. One could imagine Wei Xi's feelings at that time. Fengzhen frowned and asked, "Why did my lord summon us?" Qiguan Rang laughed coldly and asked, "The 4 factions of Nanman were destroyed. Can we give Nanxing a chance to breathe?" You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.